Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Is Alderman Fleming here tonight?
No, she's not here.
Alderman Fleming, Alderman Fisk,
I've been.
Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Ruth Simmons,
Here.
Alderman Suffredin, Alderman Ravel, Alderman Rainey. We have a quorum.
All right. Thank you, City Clerk. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday, November 25th, 2019, Evanston City Council meeting. We have 8 of our aldermen here. Alderman Fisk was just grabbing a bite, and Alderman Fleming scheduled an emergency ward meeting to talk about a recent shooting that occurred in her ward. So she is out this evening at that. That's going on at the same time that we're having this meeting. Tonight, we've got the public hearing for the downtown Evanston SSA, and that's a reestablishment, and then the Central Street SSA, which is a new SSA. And so, per the rules of public hearing, I call this public hearing to order. As required by the Illinois state statute, a public hearing is required to create or reestablish a special service area. This public hearing is for reestablishment of the downtown Evanston Special Service Area number 4 and the creation of 2 new special service areas on Central Street, SSA number 7 and SSA number 8. We will first hear from city staff, followed by 2 short. We'll first hear from city staff with any questions of the consultants and the merchant district leaders, and then we will then have an opportunity for the city council to ask any questions if they do of those folks. I'll then ask the city clerk to submit any written comments from the community on these SSAs, and I'll then open the floor to public comment before closing the public hearing. I do have a sign up here, and I have 5 individuals who've signed up to speak about the SSAs. Right now, I would like to welcome Paul Zelmazak, the city's economic development manager, to take it from here. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I am Paul Zelmazak, the Economic Development Manager. I want to briefly step you through this agenda this evening. One of the requirements is to just briefly summarize the public notices in conformance to the state statutes. The process to date has complied with the state statute, and tonight is an example of that. It's a public hearing. And we had sent out public notices of this public hearing to the affected individuals. In addition, tonight we have both the downtown Evanston Special Service Area and we have the proposed Central Street Special Service Areas. There are 2 SSAs on Central Street proposed, one on the east side and one more central toward the west. We couldn't do a single SSA because there was about a mile-long section of residential that it wouldn't make sense to provide them in the special service area. I should also note that we had many community meetings in both districts leading up to this. Aldermen have been involved, lots of community members. So as I said, we have both merchants here tonight and the executive director of downtown Evanston, in addition to members of the Central Street Business Association. If you had any questions from them, now would be the time to ask.
Are there any questions from the council? Okay. Seeing none, proceed, Paul.
Okay. I do believe that there will be public comment from each of the organizations. Mr. Mayor, this would go back to you. Item number 4, which would be city council discussion on the matters.
All right, thank you for that overview, Paul. At this time, is there any further city council discussion or questions about either the Central Street Special Service Area or the downtown Evanston Special Service Area? Okay, seeing none, at this time we will accept any additional written comments from the members of the public. City Clerk, do we have any written comments submitted on this hearing?
Mayor Haggerty and council members, there are no written comments on the SSA hearing.
All right, thank you, City Clerk. We're now going to open this for public comment, and those who have signed up, I'll invite you up to make some remarks on these items. The first speaker is Mike Vasilko, who asked to speak on SSA number 7 and SSA number 8, which is the Central Street. Next speaker will be Chiang Boyoung. and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, and then Daniel Kelch. Welcome.
Thank you. I'd just like to have somebody, maybe it's Paul or somebody else, explain just briefly for the residents who didn't attend those meetings, those many meetings that were said to have been had, how much taxes are being taken from either the residents or the merchants, and how that tax money is being spent. That's all I'd like to have somebody answer while I cede the rest of my time to that person.
Okay, thank you. Tell you what, I'm going to keep track of the questions, and then I'll just ask Paul if he'll come up and we can clarify things for folks. Okay, thank you, Mike. So next is Chiang Bung. Oh, yes, come on up. And then we've got Daniel Kelch and then Tom Erd.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chong Byun. I own the building on Central Street and Prairie since 2006. I had, I achieved the American dream after I got the one property on the Central. Evanston, beautiful. But suddenly, miserable thing happened here. Recently, I attended a meeting for SSA, 7 I'm talking about, okay? Majority of people who attended that meeting, I look at their face, I look at their eyes, so mad. You know what that means? Nowadays, average American people have to work longer, harder, to pay for the more taxes right now. We gotta stop that. I'm the owner. The marketing company outside, which hired by city or Central Street Business Association, whatever, they are trying to push the case, to make the case continuously. That's wrong. Elderly people, condo unit owner, they are retiree. They do not have room to pay for, what they are saying is, $20 more per month. $50 per month more. You know what? That $50 to you sounds very little money, but actually there is a lot of people, big burden. Now, I strongly oppose this SSA number 7 because long time. Last year, when I had this contract to renew with my tenant restaurant, building owner renewed twice, but he said, Sonny, I cannot renew any more longer because every year, 30,000, 40,000 minus after I paid all the expense, including employee payroll. Gosh, my wife and I, agreed to lower the rent. I have to, because I have 3 daughters. Now, my wife cannot sleep every night well. After we heard the, Cook County property tax went up in Evanston dramatically right now. Now, I have 3 daughters, college student. Oldest one got the, graduate school acceptance from several other states, right? 3 other states. Now, since this property tax increased, every night, my wife and I, my oldest one, fighting. Of course, I cannot send my oldest daughter to out of state with my totally unplanned my expense, which is a property tax, dramatically go up, plus SSA. This is, come on, you're trying to steal our hard-earned money from the average American people, from the Central, is there a Central Street business owner here who are for this SA? You guys are very, very unethical, immoral. You know what? You are the very
Mr. Chung, direct your comments up here to us, please. Mr. Chung, please direct them to us.
You gotta pay your own expense to decorate something here. The purpose of SSA. Let me read it. Decorate the holiday decoration. You should pay. Come on, why do you transfer those expense to the innocent property owners? Period. If you want to decorate, beautify, you can do it easily. You want a concert, hold a concert, or you want to hold a picnic for children, you can take your own children without any expense. Don't pay for the outside the marketing company money or people, city personnel payroll. I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. Please, please, please oppose. I mean, I strongly oppose this one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Look at my face.
We can, yes, we see.
You know, let me finish.
I've got a couple other speakers
Yes, sir.
that
Let
want
me
to come up.
quickly
Real quick.
finish. When I talk to the, when I arrived here, I talked to the group of, elderly people. They said, Sonny, done deal. Done deal. I didn't know what that done deal means. I asked why. Why done deal? This is America, democratic country here. They said they will hear the, people opinion. They said, no, they are done deal. City and the outside the country interest, business interest party already done deal. I said, no, I will show you. I'm gonna get the signature petition. Even though I have to give up to make money to support my 3 daughters' college expense, but this is not right. Because when I attended the meeting, first meeting, held in like a coffee shop on the Central Street, I saw majority of people oppose. I didn't see this the city older man there, just the Central Street business owner, but except that everybody opposed. Just I want to let you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel Kelch. Daniel, you're up next. Just a reminder to everybody, please direct your comments to us up here, not to folks in the crowd. Welcome, Daniel. Then we got Tom Erd and then Simone Ottinger.
All right, thank you. My name is Dan Kelch. I operate Lulu's Taco Diablo 5 and Dime restaurants. We also have several commercial property units on Davis Street in downtown Evanston. I'm speaking in support and advocating for the downtown SSA renewal. I'm no longer on that board. Annie dragged me out here because I've been on that board for a very long time, back from when it was a very small starting out organization until just a few years ago. My experience with that organization has been that they have done more events, has done more maintenance for the downtown, has kept it looking good, has kept it looking vibrant as a destination for our guests and customers. And for that reason, I am fully in support of it. Here today, besides the executive director, there are quite a few other small business owners and property owners that are in support of this. Our board of directors has always had a wide reach from some of the largest property owners in downtown, the hotel facilities, et cetera, all the way down to single property owners like myself and even individual business owners who do not own the property. So as the SSA has gone on, it's been a very good public-private benefit because the city has, not the alderman necessarily, but past city managers have asked us to kind of do odd and end maintenance projects here and there and pick that up for them, and we've been happy to do that. But things like garbage pickup 6 days a week is just one of the biggest examples of imagine if that did not happen, what our downtown would look like and the condition that it would show to the rest of our visitors and the people within our own community. So all your commercial, I'd have to say, I've never seen anyone that has objected to it. But in the downtown, I believe the overwhelming majority of our downtown property owners, commercial property owners, are the ones who pay into this, have been involved in this organization, have attended meetings and put input and have been very supportive of it. And therefore, I'd like to see this re-upped and continued.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. We got Tom Erd and then Simone Ottinger. And just Tom Erd has checked off as speaking on the SSA number 7 and SSA number 8 for Central Street. Welcome.
Correct. Thank you, committee. I'm Tom Erd from the Spice House on Central Street. We've been there for 24 years. And, 24 years ago, we could get 15 or 20 people at our monthly Central Street meetings. It was a hardworking group. The marketing was real simple. The merchants didn't have websites and email to manage and worry about. The customers didn't have Amazon. It was a much simpler world. Those days are gone. Business people now are so busy. We have monthly Central Street meetings, and we get 5, 6, 7 tired, worn-out shopkeepers, and we have a tiny budget of about $13,000 a year. $10,000 of it is our Great Merchants Grant, and thank you so much for that. Without that, we'd really be sunk. So we've got just these 5, 6 people that do all the work every month, all year long. and we're just hanging on by the thread of our chinny chins. I mean, we are doing just the minimum of what we need to get done on Central Street. You know, our association still exists. We still have meetings, but you know, with 5 or 6 people doing all the work, we just can't get much done. Now, even with, you got Amazon, you got Old Orchard barking up our backs, and we still have a lot to offer on Central Street. I mean, we got a street vibe and a sidewalk culture that Old Orchard can't touch. On Central Street, you can feel the product, you can smell it, you can try it on, you can taste it, you can talk to the service provider face to face. You can't do that with a keyboard and a mouse. Okay, but we got to get that out. We have to promote that, and we have to, we have to do it in a 21st century way. And the group we have now and the budget we have now just isn't cutting it. We need some organization. We need some marketing. Some steady staff. We need some secure funding to bring all this together. You know, our ragged group of 5, 6, 7 tired shopkeepers and a tiny budget just can't do this kind of work effectively anymore. And we really, really need these SSAs. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Good evening. I'm Smani Ottinger. I am a 7th Wharf resident, and I'm a business owner on Central Street. I've had a shop for 11 years. I prepare a statement. I'm going to read it, but I just want to add something ad hoc here. I am surprised at the level of misinformation or uninformation, lack of information that around this. We have had numerous public meetings, community meetings. We have the website explaining how the SSA works, what is it for, and still I see a lot of ignorance on the subject, how it works, what it does, who pays for it, and etc. You know, the first speaker had no idea, and I see people who complain and that are not even part of the SSA, they're against it. So anyway, I urge, you know, people who are here and don't understand what the SSA means, to go to our website or talk to us, basically get some information, what it means for the city and for yourself. And you'll see that it's very positive, mostly completely positive.
Okay, folks,
so,
comments need to be directed up here from the speaker at the podium.
So, I asked the City Council to approve the ordinance establishing the SSA on Central Street. This is the culmination of 2 years of work involving volunteers from the Central Street Business Association, the City of Evanston Economic Development staff, and task associates. This proposal was carefully engineered to optimize the investment in the business district without burdening residents. And I will repeat that, without burdening residents with additional taxes. Sir, please!
Hey.
You had your chance to speak. Now let me.
Excuse me, it is her opportunity to speak. It's her opportunity to speak right now, please.
These funds are much needed in our district in order to generate traffic to Central Street. From basic cityscape maintenance to marketing and events, we need to keep this neighborhood attractive and vibrant in order to stay in business. In the past, retailers had control of the market. Today, the situation has reversed, and the consumer controls, able to compare prices and shop anywhere, anytime. The only way for a brick-and-mortar retailer to stand out and thrive is to offer a superior experience to that consumer. And that includes keeping an inviting infrastructure, not just inside the individual store, but as a neighborhood, a community. For the past 2 decades, the Central Street Business Association has been a membership organization run by volunteers. That is no longer working. There are fewer of us, and our businesses are more demanding than in the past. We need to take it to the next level and bring in a dedicated professional who can run the show. SSAs have been very successful in Evanston and in several neighborhoods of the city of Chicago. And we feel that establishing our own SSA here in Evanston on Central Street will be very advantageous to area businesses, area residents, and the city of Evanston as a whole. Besides myself, I have several other colleagues here. This whole second row
They would like
here,
to stand. They
and
can stand if you
yeah,
want.
if you'd stand. These are additional business owners on Central Street that have worked hard to come up with this proposal. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, so that concludes the folks that we had signed up for the public hearing. Paul, Ms. Almazak, there was a question for Mr. Vasilka, though, about taxes, and this was specifically, he was directing this to the SSA 7 and 8 on Central Street, and how does this work? How much do they increase and all that, if you could talk to that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to give you, first of all, this is all outlined in the staff report. But to give you an example, I think typical examples would be a way to kind of demonstrate. So if a commercial property tenant of around 1,800 square feet was in the SSA, they would be paying roughly $557 per year to be in the SSA. So that is based on a 0.0025% rate. If that, I think that answers kind of the general question. Each PIN that's in the SSA will have its own payment. I also feel, Mr. Mayor, that I need to point something out. There are no residential properties in this special service area.
No.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
So what I was saying is, during the process, we had a single SSA, we had a single special service area planned from the west end of Central Street at Central Park, roughly, or Central Park, east to essentially Mustard's. I forget the name of the street. It's Ashland. So what we learned during that process is that residents didn't want to partake in it. And with Alderman Suffredin and Ravel's leadership, we came up with a different process that took out, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, every single residential parcel that is in the SSA. So this is now strictly a business special service area. And secondly, just for clarification, this special service area, as the downtown, in addition to the main Dempster Mile, the Main Street in Dempster, businesses ask for this. And on top of that, they are asking themselves to be taxed, because that money is then used locally to provide the services that they've asked for. So that's money that they're taxing themselves and using in their own districts. This isn't something that the city is adding on and providing additional funding to these districts. If other business districts would like a special service area, I would encourage the merchant groups of those areas to contact us, and we will work with them.
Did you want to speak at the hearing? No, I just. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Is it business owners or building owners who would be required?
Just repeat the question if you could.
The question was, is it building owners or business owners who?
They're not the same.
Okay, that's a good question. So the SSA tax goes to the property owner. It appears on the tax bill. So if there's a multi-tenanted building, the landlord will pass that tax onto the tenant. So if it's one tenant or multiple tenants, that bill is split up based on the agreement they have with the landlord, if that makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
Dave.
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Wilson.
So I just think, Paul, you kind of touched on a couple of these points, but it's important to note that if you live in a different neighborhood that's not in this service area, none of your tax money is going to this service area.
That is absolutely correct.
So if somebody lives in the fourth ward, none of the fourth ward residents' tax money is going to 7 or 8. And when the Central Street groups came to Economic Development Committee, they approached us. So this is not initiated by the city. This is initiated by people who have chosen to tax themselves. And same thing with the main Dempster Mile. Years ago, they did the same thing, and they approached Alderman Nguyen and myself. She said, we want to tax ourselves, and I thought to myself, well, why would you want to do that? Right. So, but I think other businesses, having seen the success of that service area, are now interested in adopting something similar. So, you see the cross-marketing opportunities, you see the streetscape improvements, just a lot of great things happening in those areas because these people have chosen to pursue taxes on themselves, essentially. So, but again, I just wanted to stress this point that it's not other taxpayers in the community, that your money's not going there. It's only this specific area. They're taxing themselves, and the money's being kept in their own district.
No, I'm sorry. You've had the chance to get up there. I'm sorry.
Alderman Wilson, I will again reiterate what you just said. When and I'll be very brief. When a landlord receives the tax bill in the very defined area, and this has been practiced for downtown Evanston, for example, 1987. Okay, 1987. It's been operating since 1987, and landlords in downtown Evanston, Main Dempster Mile, Central Street, they pass the tax on to the tenant. You rework the lease. It's been successful. People ask for it. And this is what a majority of the Central Street Business Association have asked for. And they've all spoken to their landlords.
Order. This is our opportunity to hear from Paul right now.
There are no homeowners in the special service area.
All right, Alderman Rainey.
Well, just maybe a clarification on the bill for those in the special service district. There's a special line
Correct.
for this amount. This is not folded into their
Correct.
to their regular city of Evanston. So there's a special line that says special service district, blah, blah.
Correct. Thank you for clarifying that. There, like you see mosquito abatement and school district,
You know
you'll also
exactly
see,
what you're paying.
You'll see special service area tax, SSA number 7, and it'll list the amount, and that amount would pass on to the tenant.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
There's just a question about how much does it go up every year, and how is that determined, Paul?
Thank you for the question. It's a good one. The rate's established, and that rate stays the same. Every year, the special service area leadership comes to the city council and gets approval for their request for levy. Okay. So there's opportunity on an annual basis for the public and this city council to review all special service area requests annually.
Let them pay.
All right. Oh, okay. One more question. Please repeat it.
How long would the assessment take place, and if the return on investment doesn't appear to be there, is there an opt-out option?
That's a good question. The question for the public at home is how long does the special service area, in this case, act or ordinance last? The Central Street, this would be it's a 10-year ordinance, but every year they come back. Sorry, the executive director of the organization will return, and that's an opportunity for the city council to determine if they're going to continue. So it's a 10-year ordinance, but with an annual renewal.
Okay. Any more questions from the council for Mr. Zalmazak? Okay. All right. Seeing no more, I move to close this public hearing. Upon closure of the public hearing, the clock starts in the state statute required 60-day objection petition period. If a petition, no, I've got it. We're at this point here. You had the opportunity to speak.
How did he come up with a $500 based on 1,800 square feet? That's a wrong fake number.
But again, it was all in the reports and everything else, how those figures were determined. If a petition is signed by at least 51% of the electors residing within the SSA and 51% of the owners of record during the 60 days following this public hearing, then the SSA is nullified. Considering the success of the SSAs in Evanston, the Main Street, Dempster Street, SSA in the downtown, and the significant public process, this is unlikely to occur. But again, that petition period exists for 60 days. I want to thank all of our merchants for working hard to improve our unique business districts here in Evanston. So thank you, and thank you, Paul, and everyone else for your work, and thank you for coming out and sharing your concerns on this matter. We're now going to move to the next item of the agenda, which is my public announcements and proclamations. Excuse me, I need to do roll call. Excuse me, I don't need to. Okay, so we're good. Okay.
I think for the council meeting, maybe we should.
All right, so let's just go ahead and do that. For the city council meeting now, I'm going to ask the city clerk if they'll take the roll one more time, please.
For the city council meeting, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Yes.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Revelle. Alderman Rainey. And Alderman Fleming.
All right, great. Thank you,
We have a
clerk.
quorum.
Thank you, clerk. Okay, we've got 8 of our aldermen here for the city council meeting. We're now going to move into, I have no proclamations to announce today, but I do want to pass along the condolences of everybody here in the city. The city, like any organization, is a big family, and this past week we lost one of the members of our family. Donna Stewart Farrell worked in our collection office downstairs for a long time, and passed away unexpectedly this week on November 22nd at the age of 67 years old. If you knew Donna, she's going to have visitation and the memorial on November 30th. The visitation's from 11:30 to 12, and then the memorial starts right after that. It's going to be at Friendship Baptist Church here in Evanston at 2201 Forest Street. And again, our deepest sympathies and condolences to Donna Stewart Farrell. City Manager, do you have any announcements?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
City Clerk?
Yes, I just want to acknowledge for the council that there were several public comments issued relating to Kevin Brown, in support of Kevin Brown. There is one other public comment that was submitted as well, and all of those will be forwarded to members of the council.
Thank you, Clerk. We're now going to move into the public comment section. I just need to pull up the electronic.
I apologize. I also want to note that we did receive a public comment in support of the Evanston Public Library from Luke Thompson, as well as a public comment regarding our reparations and cannabis ordinance on the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Clerk Reed. Okay, we have 26 speakers that are signed up this evening. I'm going to, I don't know, I didn't do a quick calculation on the time. I'm going to say that's 1:45 for each speaker tonight. So I'm going to ask that you keep your remarks to 1 minute 45 seconds. And as always, this is your opportunity to speak to the Evanston City Council. It's not a dialogue. The council's not going to speak back to you. I do ask that you keep within the 1 minute 45 seconds. Clerk Reed will keep track of it. He will have a beeper that goes off, and when it does, I'm going to ask that you finish up. Okay, so we can get everybody done. We set aside 45 minutes for public comment. I'm going to ask our city manager to keep track of the overall time. All right, our first speaker tonight is Laurie Keenan. Then we have Matthew Keenan, then Laurie McFarland. I did 1:45.
Hi, my name is Lori Keenan, and I live in the 7th Ward. I'm here tonight to talk about reinstating Kevin Brown and also to talk about parking tickets. For the nearly 10 years that Wally Bobkowitz was city manager, I had to sit and listen about how he took direction from council. Countless times he said his hands were quote unquote tied because of that. So why is this issue different? Why are you pretending there's nothing you can do as you sit idly by and let an interim city manager fire a valued and beloved employee and vital member of our community over parking tickets? What's really going on here? You're about to let this decision potentially torpedo an award-winning youth and young adult services division, lose a valued city employee, and moreover, potentially lead us into yet another multi-million-dollar lawsuit we cannot afford. And for what exactly? I don't think the mayor or anyone else misspoke when they said this was personal versus a personnel matter. We've heard that this was preordained, and we've all seen enough to know that how this mayor and former city manager work. You've made a big mistake, and it's about to get bigger and more expensive. If you can call for an independent investigation into our city council and city clerk, which amounted to nothing, then you can certainly call for an independent investigation here. And as for the parking tickets themselves, that's the most asinine thing I've ever heard, that we would pay for a parking attendant to patrol our civic center parking lot, to ticket residents or employees who are parking there for any reason. That's a ridiculous practice that needs to end yesterday. Now we're paying for the privilege to penalize ourselves? Seriously, where does the stupidity end? This isn't even robbing Peter to pay Paul. This is robbing Peter to pay Peter. Enough is enough. Seriously. In addition to my son receiving $225 worth of street cleaning parking tickets since last Tuesday, tickets he pays for himself, I know someone who attended a DAPR meeting last week and was ticketed and barnacled as she sat in a meeting, an engaged member of the community in the parking lot of our civic center on a Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you, Laurie.
The parking in Evanston has reached epic idiocy. Our fines and penalties need to be reviewed immediately, and anyone who has been disaffected by tickets at the civic center should immediately be refunded, or in the case of Kevin Brown, reinstated. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Matthew. We got Matthew Keenan, Laurie McFarland, Mike Vasilko.
I'll speak on behalf of Matthew, who told me he wasn't going to come because he didn't see any point, because nothing ever changes. But he pays for parking tickets himself. He is among the working class in Evanston. He has an hourly job that he works himself. He pays for his repairs, he pays for his gas, he pays for his parking tickets, and in 1 week, he got 3 street cleaning tickets of $75 apiece to an 18-year-old. Who else can afford the burden of these tickets? A street cleaning ticket should be $15 at most. It should be an inconvenience that makes you think twice about where you're parking. It should not be a burden that cannot be afforded by the citizens of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Laurie McFarland, and then Mike Vasilko, then Kenneth Prosky.
Hello, I'm Laurie McFarland, and I am here about the Northwestern booze bill. As you know, Northwestern has asked to be permitted to sell alcohol at the Welsh Ryan Arena going forward, and specifically what's up tonight is creating a new ordinance class license so that Northwestern could do that. That will enable Northwestern to sell alcohol at any arena events. Those events would serve up to 7,000 patrons at a time. That is probably more than all of the bars and restaurants in Evanston combined can serve. And there are more than 60 events per year before the addition of whatever special events will be added by Northwestern that occur at the arena. And so that is an average, if it were spread out over a year, of 1 per week. And that is a lot of people getting alcohol in one spot in Evanston. This ordinance was estimated to bring in $17,000 per year. So the financial return to the city is minimal, whereas the dangers posed by public intoxication are large because it is such a large arena. I'd like to ask you all to vote against it tonight. I'd like to tell you that it's also a very poorly designed ordinance as it's written. As it's written, there are no restrictions in it for time. There are not even any restrictions for date. It does not even say that Northwestern must sell alcohol only on the dates when there are events. Instead, they could be doing it every day of the year under this license ordinance. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mike Vasilko, Kenneth Prosky, and Cam Howard.
So you're going to hear a lot about Kevin Brown tonight. Simply instruct the city interim manager to rehire Kevin Brown. You have the authority to do that. And that would put an end to all of the angst that's in the community right now. I had asked, on a second point, I'd asked Alderman Ruth Simmons. She seemed interested in considering bringing back the U2 text amendment issue because the process, how it was approved, was riddled with errors. It was riddled with favors to Northwestern. But if I understand Alderman Ruth Simmons correctly, she's not going to be able to do that tonight, which I think is very disappointing considering a packet of information was provided to Alderman Ruth Simmons and other aldermen outlining all of those errors in specifics and in context to the comprehensive general plan of Evanston. Very disappointing decision that will be remembered. Regarding the budget, citizens don't need any more taxes. We just don't. Can't afford them. People are being merchants, I hear very clearly, are being pushed out of the community, as well as residents who can't afford to live in Evanston anymore. They're being pushed out of the community, usually, mostly the minority and low-income people who can't afford to be here. So regarding taxes in the budget, you've got a lot of tax levies planned for discussion tonight. We need a discussion. We need more discussion. We need a workshop. There's too much information to absorb from my perspective. Anybody who works for a living can't spend all the time that it takes to read over 1,000 pages of information. So have your discussion tonight, but put the agenda for action on another city council evening, not tonight.
Thank you, Mike. We're at our time.
There's $44 million you're proposing of new property taxes next year. The budget is $321 million this year. $8.6 million more taxes for the library, which, quite frankly, the library deserves their budget. Last year I contested it because you spent $54 million on Robert Crown. This year they deserve their budget increase.
Mike, we got to get to the next speaker.
You know, there's just enough of the property tax increases, enough taxes, enough of everything. Get that $12.5 million from your friends, the so-called friends of Robert Crown. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kenneth Prosky. And then Cam Howard. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing people's names. And Mary Rosinski. Welcome.
Ken Prosky from the 7th Ward. I'm here to talk about the R1 liquor license. I'm not going to repeat what Ms. McFarland already said. I do oppose it and wish that you would oppose it as well. What I'd like to add to that is that I've done some research. There are 7 Big Ten arenas that do not serve alcohol. Northwestern is one of those 7, and there are 7 that do. If you decide to pass it and be like the other 7 that do, then when you look at what they have in place, all of them have restrictions, which I don't see in Evanston's R1 liquor license. All of them typically have restrictions that look basically like this. Alcohol can only be sold inside the arena 1 hour before it up until the end of the 3rd quarter of the athletic event. Wrigley Field has the 7th inning. If it's not an athletic event, typically ends 1 hour before the event is scheduled to end. The liquor can't be served after that point. Liquor can't be brought into the arena or taken out of the arena. People can't exit and re-enter. It only can be sold on the day of an event, not just any time, a scheduled event. Other examples include only in plastic or paper containers, no glass, no cans. There's provisions for prevention of sale to minors and of passing alcohol to minors. There's typically provisions that talk about how to treat guests that are inebriated or intoxicated. I don't see any of that in the current license that you have in front of you. And I'd urge you, if you do decide to pass this, to incorporate, these are very common, they're in all of the Big Ten arena, sports arena liquor licenses. And if Welsh Rhine is going to have a license, they should be here too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Cam Howard, Mary Rosinski, and then Evie Russell.
Good evening, Council. My name is Cam Howard. I'm with the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. I also serve as a commissioner on the National African American Reparations Commission. And I'm here to support the legislation that will create a commission for reparations and also to fund that commission via the marijuana sales tax. We believe that this is a special day for Black residents in Evanston. It's a special day for Evanston, and by extension, a special day for Black Americans and for America as a whole. This day, this legislation will begin the reckoning for past crimes committed and for current injuries suffered by Black Americans and by Black residents here in Evanston. We know what those crimes look like. Ta-Nehisi Coates in 2014 essay summed them up in one word: plunder. We know what those injuries look like. Tom Burrell described it very succinctly. He said blacks exist on the bottom of every good list in America and on the top of every bad list. I've looked at the data here in Evanston, and we can describe the same situation as blacks being on the bottom of every good list, on the top of every bad list. Thank you. So we are definitely in support of this legislation that's coming out of Evanston. But also I want to applaud the City Council and the Mayor for the process that it took in getting to this position, to getting to this decision. You did not get to this decision through an acrimonious battle between the Black community and the white community. You got through here to this decision through reason, through understanding, through rational and well thought out action. And this is very important because the number one contention for reparations in America is that it would divide the community, it would divide the nation. You have shown with your leadership that that is not true, that we have proof positive that reparations can be gained through well thought out and well-intentioned action and thought. We thank you for this legislation, and we thank you and we offer our support as needed.
Thank you for coming out. Mary Rosinski, Evie Russell, then James Engelman, then Ray Friedman.
Hi, thank you. I'm here to speak about the liquor ordinance too. I would hope you will not pass that. You will send it back with a lot of changes if it is going to be passed. I'm very concerned about the relationship between the City Council and Northwestern. There doesn't seem to be the same standards for Northwestern that the rest of the residents have. I actually think it's time for a full financial audit for the city of Evanston. I think the numbers are really too fuzzy. I think it's hard to understand. And I'm just going to, even for the Northwestern athletic tax issue, for 6 months, we have heard from Northwestern that they paid $1,495,000 in athletic taxes. And yet, our city budget says $1,080,000. And I went back 3 years. So my question is, and Kate Lewis tried to answer it today, but it makes no sense, and we will continue talking. How are you counting their taxes? What are the benchmarks of all the money that Northwestern made at their athletic events last year? $93 million plus. We made less than 1.5% here in Evanston for having that. And I do want to say, Mr. Wilson, Don Wilson, there's a huge difference between a restaurant cafe going out on the street and 7,000 people coming in for a commercial event in a non-commercial district 13 times a year. And things like this really bother me because if you say it's about the money, then we need to account for the money, and the money here is not adding up. So if one of the benchmarks is that you're going to take $225,000 as a reason to change the entire zoning district and inconvenience thousands of people, then know the numbers. So, and it's not just this, it's also Robert Crown. I'll be done in a second. Robert Crown makes no sense either. And the money that there was said there was donated, a donation means actual checks in hand. not just pledges. And as of 2017 or 2018 and 2019, there was only 6 million. And the rest, about 4 million, still has to be raised of that 12 million. So we need to be honest. We need truth in taxation, and we need to look at our budget and have actual numbers. But I want to know where the $400,000 is in the budget that Northwestern has given us.
Thank you, Mary. Evie Russell, come on up. James Engelman, Ray Friedman, then Misty Wittenberg. Remember, everybody, you got a minute 45.
Which I don't think is correct, by the way, if you do the math. Anyway, this is regarding the ordinance 135/019, and I have questions that maybe Alderman Revel can bring up on my behalf. It says here to amend permitted uses within the U2 zoning district. This was just sent to me by the city manager, and does this include the U2 zoning district? Does it include the T1 part? Because that is important in terms of the number 2 on page 2, where it says that the written notice to residents within 500 feet. Does it include the parking lot, the T1, or does it not? So that's why we need to know. And also it includes the loitering and tailgating is prohibited just in the U2, or also the T1, and also on the golf course or any other public place that is connected with these temporary events. Because if we have loitering before, during, and after everywhere except, let's say, the strict U2, then this is going to be still a great disruption to the neighborhood. So that's one thing. I'm, of course, against the alcohol thing, mainly because of a safety issue. I have shown you articles regarding the problem of drunk driving, and I want to tell you respectfully, and the entire city who is listening or going to watch the video, that if anybody will get hurt because of a drunk driving incident caused directly by a attendee of one of these events, that they should know that the city needs to be held liable for this, and Northwestern should be held liable for this. And finally,
thank you, we're
I want to show you, but this is something that really disturbed me. I talked to Ms. Storley about this, is the Planning and Development Committee meeting on the U2. After the presentation of Northwestern, a big thank you appeared on the site in white. Why is it Northwestern getting official thank you on the YouTube video, whereas when we present things, we don't get anything?
Thank you. Okay. Anyway. All right, James, welcome. And then we got Ray Freeman, then Misty Wittenberg, then Oliver Ruff.
I'm James Engelman from 24 Brown in the Ford. I'd like you guys to establish a fund for this prevention committee. They did really hard work during the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. All right. Ray, we got Ray Freeman. Are you here, Ray? Come on up. And then Misty Wittenberg, then Oliver Ruff, then Max Overholt.
Good evening. Ray Friedman, 2nd Ward. Trying to put things in perspective, I'm looking at these council meetings as a time to share ideas and hopefully have a dialogue on issues that we have or discuss projects that are coming up. This is not personal, it's business. It's about the city and the people who live here, work here, and visit here. We would like to know where our money is going and how much is coming in and how much is going out and what it's being used for. We want to see a balanced budget with no increases in taxes or fees. We don't want to see the city of Evanston being financed every year by new bonds. You have one item proposed tonight for $1.7 million in general obligation bonds to be taken out in 2021, where a federal grant money is putting in $6.5 million. Do we have an unlimited supply of general obligation bond money? When are we going to stop spending money we don't have? If we don't have the money, let's cut expenses. Remember, our number one goal for 2019-2020 was to stabilize our finances. What are we doing to achieve that goal? We've had several budget meetings in the last couple of months. October 26th, in 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. I don't recall any of the issues that are on tonight's 16-page agenda being brought up at that time. And 2 days later, October 28th, we had a marathon city council meeting with 4 meetings that night and 4 sign-up sheets. When were we supposed to have some discussion about these 4 different meetings the same night so that the residents have an idea about what we are voting on, and we have the opportunity to have some dialogue on these important issues?
Thank you, Ray.
And did everyone read the 1,152-page packet for tonight? We need to be able to discuss these 1,152 pages of changes before they're voted on.
Thank you, Ray.
One more sentence, please. If the idea behind expanding the Howard Ridge TIF is to take out more bonds, please don't do it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Misty Wittenberg, Oliver Ruff, Max Overholt, and then Natisha Waldron.
Hi, Misty Wittenberg, 5th Ward, here to speak about ethics again. You guys made some minor modifications. Now the Rules Committee is the final decision maker as to the existence of violation of municipal ordinances, also subject to judicial review. That's an administrative decision under state law. So I first want to commend Alderman Fleming and Ravel, because before I ever said anything, you guys were asking the right questions in the public interest on this. And I'm disappointed that some of you haven't been interested in what's in the public's interest. So I would like to talk about what's in your public interest, or your personal interest, I should say. And that's where it comes to governmental immunity, because like quasi-adjudicative bodies, you have discretionary decisions that you make, and you receive legislative immunity for those as policymakers. You receive quasi-legislative immunity through your Rules Committee. You do not receive quasi-judicial or adjudicative immunity because you are precluded from those functions expressly. So you can be held personally liable for paying expenses for harm done that way, particularly where that is made express and where you violate constitutional protections like due process, which we keep hearing about. So there were a few towns that people spoke about as why this was okay for you guys to do. One of them was Aurora, which just in July made an intergovernmental agreement to change its ethics code. So now the county adjudicates its ethics violations. So it no longer does it through its council. Joliet now spends $25K a pop per ethics investigations. That's as of this month. So that's not, I would say, in our fiscal responsibility area. And Skokie hasn't had any recent ethics cases. But I wanted to tell you what the legal department said about your authority to do this on behalf of the Rules Committee. Quote, the Rules Committee's jurisdiction does not include the power or authority to make administrative decisions. End quote. Quote, statute that creates administrative agency defines the authority therein. Jurisdiction and authority of an administrative agency must be found within the provisions of the statute. So there's not a statute that even creates the Rules Committee. It is just City Council. You are not actually moving anything. And I just want to finish by saying I didn't get to speak on Kevin Brown, and I don't know him personally, but I do know he is the reason why children no longer get shot in the alley 10 feet from my house. And it's just repeating between Suzette Robinson, our clerk. This process you guys have is not a fact-finding mission. It's to get rid of people who blow the whistle on things you don't want out. Thank you.
Thank you, Misty. Oliver, come on up. Oliver Ruff, Max Overholt, Natisha Waldron, then Betty Esther. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Haggerty, Interim City Manager, City Clerk, alderpersons, and audience. My name is Oliver A. Ruff. I come before you to address two distinctly unique issues, but the parallels for decision-making are quite similar. The first issue is regarding Mr. Kevin Brown. I would hope and trust that the powers to be will dig deeply in the decision-making wisdom and do the right thing regarding the restoration of his position. It is crucial to the welfare of this community at large. Secondly, I support the approval of the ordinance for the city of Evanston to commit all of its anticipated tax revenue from the recreational marijuana businesses to support work aimed at intentionally repairing harms done to the Black community from policies and practices in so many different areas, such as healthcare, housing, business development, education, social services, library services, etc. In the area of health care delivery services, unable to consistently access medical care from St. Francis and Evanston hospitals, for decades, Dr. Isabella Garnett and her husband, Dr. Arthur Butler, founded the Community Hospital of Evanston. Yet the policy decision of the city's fathers and mothers was due to close the hospital and to merge it with the Evanston Hospital instead of strengthening it and to serve the Black citizens, better serve the Black citizens. In the area of housing, redlining by banks of Evanston has harmed the equity interests of the Black Evanstonians over an extensive period of time. For years, Blacks who were interested in purchasing homes were faced with restrictive covenants preventing their purchases in certain areas unless they bought through the white straw buyers. It is evident for all to see that a great number of our Black citizens live west and in less valuable stock of homes. In the realm of business development, although African Americans were in the front line of the fight for access and set aside benefits, the resulting policies ended up benefiting a broadly diverse group instead, often to the detriment of the African American businesses. While the city's...
Oliver, I need to wrap it up. We're way over our minute 45.
My last sentence, thank you. While the city's authority does not extend to education, as a retired educator, I could tell you that the closing of the Fifth Ward School to bus children out of their school to other schools throughout the city is a harm to be repaired. Thank you for your attention and your willingness to do the right thing.
Thank you, Oliver. Max, come on up. Natisha Waldron will be next. Betty Esther, then Priscilla Giles. Welcome.
All right, good evening. My issue that I'm speaking on is concerning the Motorola issue with the 911 center. While I understand there is a need to upgrade much of the equipment, my main worry is about encryption in regards to radio communications. While there are legitimate issues with websites and phone apps that stream police radio communications, I see little, if any, need for the main dispatch channel with this new radio system to go encrypted. Special operations stuff, such as those relating to SWAT, surveillance, or narcotics should be, but regular day-to-day dispatch traffic should not. Thank you for your time and have a good night.
Okay, thank you, Max. Coming up. Natisha Waldron, come on up. Betty Esther, Priscilla Giles, and Daniel Taylor.
Hello, and thank you for your time this evening. I came to speak in support of reparations for the Black community here in Evanston. I wanted to thank you and let you guys know that I appreciate the responsibility that it takes to come and have this discussion. I wanted to share at about 21 years of age, when my mother was addicted to drugs, that it was a war on drugs and seemingly a war on her addiction. And now, later in time, as we've grown to progress, it's now a medical issue. But those matters have not been repaired. So the various felonies and drug charges that came along and affected our family haven't really been, addressed or spoken to. And so we are rebuilding from ashes from the war on drugs. So things like this are responsible to kind of helping our people kind of pull up out of that. So the evidence of this behavior and attitude is evident in Evanston. I'll talk about my own community. I live in the Fifth Ward. Our children go to school in one place, they are bused in another place. This affects them socially, this affects them emotionally when they don't really have the community that they need. I also wanted to just discuss that Evanston is the most walkable city, some of the most walkable cities in the country, but our kids don't have that same walkability as we may see on Central Street. So these are some of the things that I would like to see us addressing with these funds. And I feel like if someone is down and out and issue to the community, the best thing that you can do is employ him or make him a business owner, make him to have a community with businesses palatable. Our business district in the 5th Ward is nearly non-existent. And so this is responsible conversation, and I'm grateful for you guys having it. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you for coming out, Natisha. Miss Esther, then Miss Giles, then Daniel Taylor, then Doug Sharp. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. I stand here tonight to make a correction a statement I made at the last council meeting. It was in reference to SP6, the General Assistance 2019 tax levy. I said that the city could not do that the city owed you money. I'm sorry, they don't, but they still gonna charge you more. If I could get them to change it, I would. I went back and checked the statute that dissolved the township, and Section 29 of that statute do give the city rights to do that. And also, she's not here, Mrs. Massincup. She sent me an email with an attachment of an ordinance dated 2014 where the city voted to be able to do that. In saying that, I then respond, thanked her, also made the same statement in that email to the city council and had some other questions. You know, I did not get an answer from no one. I kind of was expecting it, since this wasn't a podium, it was an individual email, and that someone would have said something or answered something. You did not. With the General Assistance Program, when the city took over that program, they did keep up the format of telling the citizen how many clients they had, what they spent, and how the money was spent, everything. But a couple of years later, that doesn't happen anymore. So we are left with not knowing how many clients that we do reach. We see figures that is confusing. It showed that in 2018, the budget was 918,000 and such a number. 2009, then it reported as being 900,000, and that's where the 20% comes in. Then in the email I got, it said, well, the levy is going to be only 2%. That the 20% belongs to the city, larger budget. So why is that? It's confusing as to exactly how much, because as a home rule, you do not have anybody restraining the cap on your property tax. You can go as high as you wish.
Thank you, Mrs.
And those levies that you be showing, and you're showing them in the general assistance. Do not use the people that can't be here to speak, that you are saying you're helping them to raise up the people property tax.
Thank you, Ms. Hester. Ms. Giles, Daniel Taylor, Doug Sharp, Elliot Zation.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. There are so many problems and so many that our citizens suffer from the taxes that I think this is just a war of against the haves, for the haves and the have-not. That's what it That's what it is. No matter the outcome of Kevin Brown, the situation will always be remembered as the firing of another black person. And this time, Kevin Brown over parking tickets. A fine in the amount of the parking tickets and perhaps an unpaid leave of absence for a time, but ruining the future employment of a man who has made such a positive influence on at-risk youth and young adults in our city. Whether you fire Kevin Brown or not is just a travesty on the city. He has faithfully served Evanston and will have another black mark against him in whatever future employment he looks for. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Giles. Daniel Taylor. Daniel, come on up. And then Doug Sharp, and then Elliot Zation, and then Robert Gibbs.
Good evening, council members. It's Darielle Taylor.
Thank you.
I am here today as a resident of the 5th Ward. I just wanted to speak in support of the resolution 126R19, which is the Evanston Reparations Fund. I wanted to first, of course, commend the city on its efforts for enacting the reparations bill. And then secondly, just to kind of petition and request the council extend its efforts further. As a resident of the 5th Ward, we ask the council bear in mind that there will be social equity applicants applying for a dispensary license and looking for partnerships and to extend that forward in the city of Evanston. So just when you're creating your business proposals and looking to create owners within that space, we want to make sure that there are provisions for people that that have minority-owned, operated, funded businesses and a strong business acumen, that there is room for those businesses to flourish and partner with the community here in Evanston to take that initiative and drive it further. So reparations is obviously, I would just want to add, one of the only ways to achieve true social equity. So if your spirit is to honor the bill and the legislation that was passed on the state level, then you want to continue that forward here in the city of Evanston and make sure that those provisions for social equity applicants are made, and just true partnerships righting the wrongs in the communities, black and brown, which has been disproportionately impacted by those laws previously. I don't know, these are also, they're going to be partners with me, so I don't know if they have anything additional to add, but thank you for your time.
And the time is up. There we are. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Dariel, and thank you, everybody. Doug, come on up. Doug Sharp, Elliot Zation, Robert Gibbs, then Doreen Price.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Doug Sharp. I live in the 9th Ward. I'm here tonight representing Reclaim Evanston and to speak in support of Resolution 126R19, establishing a City of Evanston funding source devoted to local reparations. We are pleased with and support the city's intention to move forward with this action related to reparations. This first step, and hopefully others will follow, will begin to address the long-standing theft of wealth and opportunity that has been committed against African American residents of Evanston. We also feel the use of the cannabis tax as a funding source for reparations is a proper and fitting first step in righting the wrongs of past decades, especially when one considers how arrests from the possession of marijuana have been disproportionately used to incarcerate young African Americans. We support and look forward to the passage tonight of Resolution 126R19 by Council.
Good. Thank you, Doug. Elliot Zation, Robert Gibbs, Doreen Price, then Gail Schechner.
Elliot Zation, I live in the 9th Ward. Good evening to the Council and Mayor Haggerty. I'm here representing Reclaim Evanston to speak in support of an action that was discussed in this chamber a year ago, and it seems like a very long time ago, but it has not been put forward for action. Back in 2018, when the revision to the real estate transfer tax was first introduced, there was a discussion about the possibility of using a portion of the increase in revenue from the transfer tax to supplement the Affordable Housing Fund, but no subsequent action was taken by the Council on this proposal. During this past summer, members of Reclaim Evanston have held meetings with residents in every ward of the city to discuss the current housing crisis and also to seek support for this allocation of funds. Following these meetings, residents from each ward asked for meetings with their alderman to discuss our proposal. The response we got from the alderman we met with was either positive, or the response was that the budget had to be addressed first before our proposal could be considered. We're almost past the adoption of the budget by now, and we are returning to promote our proposal with members of the council. The housing crisis has not abated, even though we haven't been talking about it. Thousands of families in Evanston are still housing cost burdened, and the situation has not improved. We urge the council in the coming weeks to take up our proposal to take a portion of the increase in revenue from the real estate transfer tax and allocate it to the Affordable Housing Fund. This is an action that's overdue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elliot. Robert Gibbs. Is Robert here? Robert Gibbs. If Robert's not here, we got Doreen Price. Oh, here's Robert. Okay. Albert Gibbs. I apologize. Sometimes on the what we get, I don't know, this electronic thing, maybe I just see different names. Welcome, Albert. You should, if your heart is big enough, accept my apology.
Well, Robert is my great nephew. Thank you. I'll let him know you thought of him. Albert Gibbs, 5th Ward. I won't be long before you. Austerity destroys equity and racial justice. Budget cuts made over the last year, past year, let's say 3 to 5 years as well, has undeniably punished, not helped the poor and minorities. And once again, you tend to want to raise taxes. Here's a novel idea. Why don't you raise taxes on the wealthy? Northwestern, maybe. But I guess that would be too much like right. To me, this appears to be part of a continuing attack on the least of our citizenry that cannot afford this madness any further. 2% property tax increase, I hear. Water fees increase, I hear. Parking fees increase. Is this the city of Evanston's way to run black people and other minorities out of this town? It reminds me of the continued practice and maintenance and racial superiority. So I appeal to this city council. Do the right thing and not the white thing and white out blacks and minorities from this city of Evanston. What does diversity look like to you?
Thank you, Albert.
Can I save those minutes for next time?
I think we're at our time, Albert. I'm definitely not shorting anyone time up here. All right. Doreen Price. You did good. Doreen. And then we got Gail Schechner, then Daniel Featherstone, Tricia Conley, and then Dino Robinson's last.
I moved that I'm in the order that I'm placed, and Mr. Gibbs had spoken at the last meeting about his brothers and sisters and not excluding them, and I guess I'm one of them too. So with that and some tears in my heart right now, happiness and a mixed emotions that it can't be more like that for everyone else here. My Rebbe is out teaching someone in how to take care of him so I can be taken care of up here. He's a true service dog in every sense of the terms. The title of what I'm saying is, where are we, as a city? Many of the speakers here actually addressed that. This speech is incorporating what I learned last session, and then it also brings back the voices even more strongly, including Mr. Gibbs. So I go, Kevin Brown can't be just another casualty, yet another victim. When enforcement abuse violates the intention of the law itself, as are our rights, you've heard from Misty and others, are violated too. Therefore, an immediate moratorium is warranted on code enforcement for 2020 budget revenue generation. Morally incomprehensible, as is the abuse of the city's police powers, when legally allowed, advised, or directed needlessly, dividing our whole community. This is in our public's best interest. You've heard people ask that same question just today. Chief Demetrius Cook was hired to lead, restore, and build community and to prevent victimization and division. In light of its proclamations, goals, and mandates, Mayor, how does the city of Evanston justify doing otherwise? Please. And then I got like 5 short things. No more soul-wrenching Kevin Browns. Let truth-seeking and wisdom elevate the rule of law. Don't try to nitpick your way out of what you need to do that's right. No more redlining to re-traumatize survivors in action, word, or deed, or add more to the new trauma, find new trauma victims. No more city-orchestrated NIMBYism revenue generation. That's exactly what is being done, to have citizens tell on other citizens and abuse that. No more senseless destruction of health, well-being, agency, and neighborliness at the expense of the community. Reclaim our humanity, dear Evanston. Our true potential and prosperity await as one beautifully diverse community.
Thank you, Doreen.
Thank you.
We need Kevin Brown back.
All right.
Way to go, way to go.
Gail Schechner, come on up, and then Daniel Featherson, and then Tricia Conley and Dina Robinson. We last.
Thank you. I'm here wearing my Addie Wyatt Center for Nonviolence training hat, and I join with directors of other youth-serving organizations here in Evanston in support of Kevin Brown and calling for an investigation of Lawrence Hemingway and the head of the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Department, and I will indicate why. I have walked in Ms. Storley's shoes as executive director, reporting to a board of directors. For 22 years, I ran an organization on the North Shore, a nonprofit, and now I run an organization that covers the city of Chicago. I recognize the fact that a board's one employee is its executive director, and in this case, it's the city manager. But you have a situation here in which the city council is responsible to the entire Evanston community as its elected body. With this special situation, you must take into account the public benefit of maintaining Kevin in his leadership position, and it's a benefit you've already heard quantified, the youth employment, public safety, and the like. And this is the special responsibility of a city manager within a democratic body. I want to add that Mr. Brown himself reported to Lawrence Hemingway, not to the city manager. So Ms. Storley is actually at some remove from the situation. And because she was, that Mr. Hemingway is her direct report and Mr. Brown is Mr. Hemingway's direct report, I would ask that you investigate these, the allegations that we heard last week at the public hearing from Portia Davis. She made some startling allegations of sexual harassment and also said that Mr. Hemingway had been looking to get rid of Mr. Brown for many years. So I'm concerned about this, and I'm concerned about public safety. Is the Youth and Young Adult Division able to intervene in a timely manner without Mr. Brown's leadership? And so this is not going to end, and but you have the power to do the right thing, as Mr. Gibbs said. Thank you.
Thank you.
We need Kevin Brown back. Yes.
Daniel Featherson, come on up. Trish Conley, and then Dina Robinson.
Daniel Featherson of the 5th Ward. I'm here in support of the reparation fund. Reason why I feel like it's very important, I think it's a chance to really bring some equity to the company. As a business owner in Evanston, you find it hard to be able to expand your business and to help people in your community to get on their feet. And as a business owner, that's what you really want to do. You want to be able to get people who suffered from some of the things like being arrested and having felonies on their records to be able to hire them and start up businesses. In the Fifth Ward, there's no grocery store. There's not a lot of shopping, not a lot of places. If people want to eat healthy, it's not a very good option for a lot of them. And I think if we do this the right way, and the momentum is going the right way, if we could keep that momentum going, I think we can achieve things. And hopefully the city of Evanston can be on the right side of history by doing this. I think we can not only change Evanston, we can be an example for the country and show that people can come together, people can do wrong, and people can come out of it. People are not asking, and especially people of color, we're not asking for handouts, but we know that things have not been fair. And I think most people know that things have not been fair. And it's not an excuse. We keep striving, we keep surviving, and a lot of people do well. You think about the Robinsons and Heckies, and a lot of minorities have done well in Evanston. And we just want to see some of the things that have been wrong righted. And I just think that we're moving in the right direction, and I hope we keep going in the right direction. And lastly, before I go, I just want to say, bring KB back. He needs to be back. I see it every day, what he does in the community firsthand. And he really changes lives. He really puts a lot of spirit into a lot of kids that have a lot of trouble, come from troubled homes, troubled backgrounds, and he really helps. And I think that hopefully that we'll see that and we'll bring that man back, and we can keep moving forward and being on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, Tricia Conley and then Dino Robinson's last.
Hello, I'm Tricia Conley. I live in the 4th Ward. Tonight, I am in the same theme of many here, and I think a lot of these things intersect in any case. So being that the City Council has several items concerning raising our taxes on the agenda, I think one thing that sticks out in the lead is Robert Crown. We haven't seen all of the $12.5 million that the Friends of Robert Crown was going to raise. And what we do know is that at minimum, we have a yearly $3 million in interest bill on the backs of taxpayers for the next 25 years. We paid $10 million more for a contractor for Robert Crown because for some reason, they were better than the other one that met all the criteria and was highly rated by our staff. So I'm still, and many are trying to figure that out. Some council members might say this doesn't end up being a lot of money, $3 million a year, big deal, because when it's spread out, it's not really that much. But because we are looking at more taxation in this town, please, you can't speak for people on the lowest end. And that's just not just. Our community and our electeds, especially our electeds who are here to serve us, tell us that they care about affordable low and mid-income housing and making reparations. So why would we raise taxes largely to fund 2 ice rinks? And yes, much of the money is for this purpose.
Thank you.
Instead of laying out a plan to provide housing as well as funding reparations. Now, I know we're trying to fund reparations through taxation, but I hope that we also do our homework on states that have already done this and recognize that the income made is not what they thought it was, and also the taxing and the pricing of the legal marijuana is outsourcing it to the alternate economy. So please do your homework on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dino, you're going to take us home tonight. You're last up.
Hi, I'm Dino Robinson, legally Morris Robinson Jr., 5th Ward. I'm here on 2 points in support of Kevin Brown, and I echo most of the comments, all the comments that have been made tonight in support of Kevin Brown. A gentleman that brought his team together to work out in the community and partner with the multiple social services that are out there that benefit the entire community. That is an important aspect that you need to keep on premise here. That is hard to get and get the trust of this community to work with the city of Evanston. This is a unique partnership that you have not seen a lot of in the past. So please look at this, and the firing over parking tickets is not a viable reason to get rid of a very effective person and department. And secondly, in support of the resolution 126R19 for reparations, the city of Evanston, and even larger, the state of Illinois, almost less than 200 years ago, almost voted to be a slave state. Since that time, Black community in the state of Illinois and in Evanston had to abide by black codes, which was a step above slavery, but it still instituted the same type of punishment and crimes against the black body. After the Civil War, you had a period of Jim Crow, which continued to deteriorate the status of the African American community in this area, especially in Evanston. Alderman Jourdain Jr. Took office here at City Council with the sole purpose of fighting Jim Crow and inequities in the black community. He pioneered on this on the statute of taxes, and we talk about taxes a lot here. And throughout history, the black community has paid taxes, but have always been denied public, fair accessibility to the lifestyle in Evanston. So I'm in support of 126R19. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dino. And is Arthur Anderson here? Oh, you can come on up, and I understand he gave his name, but I didn't have him on my list, so. Okay, well, welcome. You got a minute 45.
Thank you. My name is Arthur Anderson. I'm here in support of the review of the denial of a certificate of authorization for 1040 Hinman Avenue in Evanston. The Preservation Council posts agendas and minutes and things like that, and I have gone through and read all of the ones that have been posted to try and find out how many solar panel reviews have occurred. The hearings on October 6, 2019 and on September 10, 2019 for the application for the authority for certificate of authority for Hinman Avenue were the first where the commission discussed inherent conflict between the Evanston Preservation Ordinance and Evanston's Climate Action Resilience Plan. The Preservation Commission seeks to preserve beauty of history, while the Climate Action and Resilience Plan seeks to use technology to preserve the environment. Peter Laudy applied to install 18 solar panels on the south-facing roofs of his home at 1040 Hinman Avenue. Even though none of the proposed solar panels faced the sidewalk or street, 8 panels would be visible to a person standing south of the house and looking at the southern side of the house. A side gable would block a view of the street from the street of the remaining 10 panels. Each commissioner at the hearing on September 10th expressed support for the Climate Action and Resilience Plan. The 3 commissioners who voted to deny the application and the one who in effect voted against it by abstaining each indicated that the
Thank you. We're going to talk about that case shortly. Okay. So yeah, you can bring it up if you want to give it to the clerk. Okay. I think the clerk said he had a copy, but maybe he has copies for everyone. Okay, so we're going to move on now. First of all, thanks everybody for coming out and speaking passionately, as you always do, on a variety of issues in front of the city. We're now going to move now to special orders of business. We have two important special orders of business this evening. The first one deals with a preservation appeal. I'm going to ask if Alderman Nguyen will go ahead and move this so we can start the hearing on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is SB1 is the special order of business regarding application for appeal to the City Council of Preservation Commission decision denying certificate of appropriateness for 1040 Hinman Avenue to install 18 solar panels on the roof. This is a question for the City Council to either affirm, modify, or reverse the decision of the Preservation Commission. I move.
You can just move it for action, and then we'll move it specifically.
Yes, I move it for action.
Second.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to open this up. Basically, this is a hearing on this appeal, and your packet had a bunch of information, obviously, about this. The appellants are here, and I told them that we would be willing to hear from them this evening if they wanted to come up. Okay, so come on up and introduce yourself to the council, and I'll give you some time. And ideally, if we could get it done in 5 minutes, if you needed a couple of minutes beyond that.
We can just pass it.
We can hand that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Peter Londy. My wife and I are owners of 1040 Hinman Avenue. Good evening, Mayor Haggerty and City Council members. Thank you for voting to hear our appeal of the Preservation Commission's denial of a certificate of appropriateness, or COA, for our proposed rooftop solar system. Yes, you have my first slide up. Thank you. You can see on this slide the proposed street visible panels in the photo rendering. It was putting these panels on this roof area that resulted in our COA denial. We located them there because it's the largest south-facing roof area unobstructed by shadows, and therefore our primary solar energy collecting location. I will comment on both the specifics of our appeal and the implications this decision has had for the broader goal of encouraging citizens to step forward and help the city meet its ambitious climate action plan. We don't believe we violated the standards noted by the Preservation Commission and believe they have been inconsistently applied to us as compared with how they were applied to two other similar Lakeshore Historic District installations with street visible panels, which were approved in 2018 at 114 Kesdy. Next slide, please. And at 743 Michigan. Next slide, please. I just want to note how similar this house is to ours, a red roof, rectangular area, and this one was approved. If the Preservation Commission's mandate is to consistently apply standards, it makes no sense we were denied because we proposed street visible panels when the Commission previously approved the street visible panels on these two houses. How much historic preservation value has been achieved through our COA denial? Very little. Our house isn't a historically important building. It, as well as the Kedzie and Michigan Avenue houses, are not listed as landmarks or landmark eligible according to the Lakeshore Historic District Survey. The installation of these panels would do no damage to the building. The panels would be mounted on a frame above the existing roof surface, and frame and panels can easily be removed later. All the denial does is to preserve a view onto our house. Only one of three street views would be impacted by the denial. It would preserve only the existing streetscape from the south. The panels, if installed, would not be visible from the north nor from directly in front of the house, but only when approached from the south. Could you go slowly through the 6 images and ending with the one that has panels on our roof? These photos sequentially show a pedestrian sidewalk view approaching our house from the north, then passing to the south, where the panels would be visible to the street. Note that the solar panels on street-facing roofs are the only panels that would be visible from all three views. The City and the Preservation Commission might want to keep the distinction between side-facing and street-facing roofs in mind when determining when to require case-by-case COA reviews. Panels are up high, away from where passers-by typically look. Passers-by perceive the streetscape at eye level and rarely look upward. In our case, our sustainable garden design provides visual interest changing with the seasons, and the building's front facade details are highlighted by the exterior paint colors. Most people do not notice skylights that have been on building roofs in the district for years. Even if they do view solar panels, is it so objectionable? Many people view them positively as an action taken on a planet-critical issue and as evidence of Evanston citizens' commitment to addressing climate issues. Personally, we would like to model the adoption of rooftop solar as an encouragement to others in the neighborhood to install their own systems. Solar panels obscure only a small portion of a modern surface. Asphalt shingle wasn't the original building material. It was invented 40 years after our house was built and was last replaced in 2002. Secondly, consider the loss of the city and historic district building owners in this denial and in the process used to generate the denial. Looking narrowly at the decision as a single denial, the loss is negligible. One house worth of clean energy produced locally that could have been included in the city's tally of climate action progress. However, looking at our denial as a test case and considering the process used to arrive at the denial, it has bigger implications. If allowed to stand, it may discourage historic district building owners to install rooftop solar. Here's why. Many houses will likely need to include street visible roofs in their installations to make them economically viable. Various financial incentives lead one to specify a system that annually generates electricity roughly at the level of the building's annual energy consumption. With current technology, this means a sizable number of panels, in many cases potentially requiring the use of street visible roofs. Next image, please. You can see in our case, we estimated 18 panels were needed, some at the rear, although somewhat shaded, some high up in the center and the rest up front, 2 locations with optimal sun exposure. You can see we had to use pretty much all of our south-facing roof. With the typically mature trees in our historic districts shading portions of roofs, not all roof areas facing toward the sun are going to be candidates for rooftop solar panels. The street visible roofs should be allowed so as not to encourage homeowners to take down trees at the rear of their houses, because Evanston's tree cover is also a valued element of our community and contributes significantly to carbon sequestration and ground cooling. Next image, please. Current COA application outcomes are hard to predict. They are based on case-by-case determinations by the Preservation Commission. Commissioners attending and voting vary from month to month, so what happens to be in attendance may matter to outcomes. The standards for review of alterations that the Commission applies to make their decisions were not written with rooftop solar in mind. The standards cited with the decision were not convincing, and they are difficult fit for the commissioners to apply. In the August meeting, Commissioner Reinhold said as much, observing that we were not proposing to make any alterations to the historic structure since solar panels can be removed, so she asked for specific standards she could apply in our situation. With outcomes hard to predict, there is significant risk to homeowners in historic districts who wish to add solar collectors. The upfront feasibility study cost ends up around 1/4 of the total cost of a project once tax credits from the federal government and ESRECs at the state level are factored in. The significant chance of a denial puts that initial investment at risk. In addition, the added step of Preservation Commission review adds a time delay and cost to the process. There is also potential collateral damage to the city of Evanston's reputation as a climate action leader. The city is justifiably proud of its record in taking action. In late 2018, it passed an aggressive climate action plan, which includes metrics for locally generated clean energy. It has the advantage of increasing network resilience and, by being close to points of energy use, reducing power loss during transmission. Our historic districts contain a significant portion of the city's rooftop areas, and our ambitious goals for a carbon-free future suggest all roofs need to contribute to collecting solar energy. Yet the city's current process for approving rooftop solar installations in historic districts is cumbersome, high risk, and allows denial without any consideration of the city's climate action goals. The city has an opportunity here to reverse this denial as well as to change the process, thereby demonstrating its commitment to meeting its climate action goals and maintaining its climate action leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lundy. Why don't you, in case we have questions, we also have Johanna Leonard here as well. We'll go ahead and start. I've got Alderman Rainey, then Alderman Wilson.
I'd like to start out by moving to reverse the decision of the Preservation Commission.
Second.
Okay. All right, so we got a few more lights and then we can go to a vote if folks will. We got Alderman Wilson, then Alderman Nguyen. You're okay? All right, Alderman Nguyen.
Well, I want to thank Mr. Londy for his tremendous efforts in this, and I think he has made his argument really eloquently as to why we need to approve these solar panels and then take his suggestions in terms of changing our preservation ordinance to allow solar panels on more surfaces on our roofs in order to keep us more in compliance with the climate action plan, resiliency plan. So I think that Mr. Londy and his wife Shirley Dugdale should be commended for persevering in all of this and their example to the community of how we all could look into new ways of producing energy and conserving energy.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Wilson.
Just a couple conceptual points. I just want to say I believe that if we don't evolve, we're going to have bigger problems than how things look. So, and context here is important. So I do think that we can preserve historical value and at the same time embrace things that we've learned and embrace as technology evolves. When these houses were painted originally, they were lead paint, so nobody would ever say, let's use lead paint. So, environmental concerns should be at the forefront of our considerations, and I think that this does meet. I think this meets standards as I believe they apply and are intended.
Thank you.
So I support the reversal.
Okay. Well, thank you, Alderman Rainey, then Alderman Fisk.
I want to, commend the Preservation Commission for all their hard work, and I understand how, some are so steeped in the preservation issues that any alteration to the exterior that they just can't accept. However, several members of the commission referred to this house as a landmark, and it's my understanding that it's definitely not a landmark. Is that true? Yeah. Also, a criticism that I mean sincerely, a member of the commission commented several times on the issue, made a motion to deny, and then abstained from the vote. We have to train our board members, and this is not a person not familiar with being a member of a board and should have known better. But that does not make a credible committee member when you do something like that. I mean, first of all, if you're going to abstain, you should not participate in any way in the conversation. And second of all, you dare not make the motion to deny and then not vote, abstain. And we have no reason why that person, we did not hear why that person abstained. So that's just a comment.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Fisk and then Alderman Nguyen.
Well, Alderman Rainey, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're going to abstain, you give a reason, and it has to be a good reason in order to abstain. And abstention means that you don't participate in the discussion or vote or anything else. So I absolutely agree with you. I want to be really careful to that we balance our interests here between our between preservation and our historic districts. I am going to support this But I had a conversation with Alderman Nguyen today, and I really think that this is an opportunity for us to do pretty much what we've done with our equity discussion, and that is let our climate action goals permeate our other boards and commissions so that we're making decisions that are coordinated between the two. We've seen the Preservation Commission struggle on the concept of landscape masses and whether landscape masses are trees. And I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. Here's a problem that we didn't anticipate. But this is another problem. This house particularly is a contributing structure in the historic district, but it's not a landmark. And more importantly, the application of these solar panels, they are removable. So it's not like you're changing the house beyond all recognition. And so if you watch Preservation Commission meetings, even on a regular basis, you'll see the commission make different judgments if a house is a landmark or not a landmark. And I don't think they made the appropriate decision right here. But what I am worried about is I would suggest to the interim city manager that we have Kumar maybe talk with the preservation coordinator and anticipate what the future challenges are going to be so that our commission is prepared for them and not reacting to them, because I don't think that's a good position for either preservation or climate action to be in. We need to have a better discussion about where we're going so that everyone's prepared for it.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Nguyen.
I call the question.
Okay. So you know, all right. City Clerk, could you take the roll, please? And this is the roll. The motion was to reverse the decision of the Preservation Commission. So an aye is to reverse the decision. A no is to retain it.
Okay. Sorry, tonight we're starting with Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Aye. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel. And Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right. On a 9-0 vote, the application for appeal to the City Council of the Preservation Commission decision denying the certificate of appropriateness for 1040 Hinman Avenue to install 18 solar panels on the roof has been reversed. You have the approval to do that. So thank you for coming out, Mr. Lundy, and we're now going to move on to SP2. Alderman Ruth Simmons, would you introduce SP2?
Yes. Yes, thank you. SB2, Resolution 126R19, establishing a City of Evanston funding source devoted to local reparations. Staff recommends City Council adoption of Resolution 126R19, establishing the City of Evanston Reparation Fund and creating a revenue source for the fund. Starting on January 1st, 2020, all recreational cannabis retailer tax will be transferred to the Reparation Fund until the fund has reached $10 million in revenue from this source. The Reparations Subcommittee is currently working to determine how the Reparations Fund dollars will be utilized in the future. Funds will be deposited into the Reparations Fund. This is for action.
Second. Okay, it's open for conversation. Alderman Fisk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm supportive of this, and thank you for your hard work. I really appreciate it, Alderman Ruth Simmons. So my question really is about the subcommittee. I've had questions from folks who want to attend the meetings, and I'm not quite sure when they are. So if someone can fill me in on when they are, and also how the public might be more involved.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Thank you for the question. So we've talked about it, and we do want to schedule public meetings, but we do have tentatively scheduled a community town hall that will be co-hosted with the National African American Reparation Commission to start a public discussion or continue the discussion with the community, building on the extensive feedback that the community shared at our community meetings that we had this summer. So we will work to establish a standing meeting for reparations and working on the initiatives that we implement
for the funding and final determinations on exactly who will receive the benefit of the local reparation.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, I'm really excited today. I think this is a good thing. I want to thank Alderman Simmons for her leadership. And I want to also acknowledge former Alderman Jean-Baptiste and many other people who have attempted to do this and weren't able to get it. As Alderman, now the Judge Baptiste said, he likes your fortitude. And so for those that participated in the many community events that were hosted, this is a really good thing. I think it's going to be very special for Evanston, and I think it's going to have one of those ripple effects that create a change in our nation, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I can't remember who the speaker was who made a comment that acknowledged council and our approach to this was with reason, and it wasn't with struggle. And I think that was the first speaker. I don't know if he's still here. So I think for those that will watch this today, later, and in the future, all of us that sit behind this dais and will support it, this is a really special moment in the city of Evanston and also in the country. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Rainey.
Well, one of the things that the subcommittee wanted to do was get some kind of a foundation in place before we went out to the public. One of the things Alderman Judge Jean-Baptiste reminded us of was we began this in the city of Evanston in 2002. And he was just so excited to know that it was starting again. And since we don't have any foundation, it was amazing. Three of us, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Simmons, and myself, just came back from the National League of Cities, and the awe that we struck when Alderman Simmons told people there what she was doing and what Evanston was getting ready to do. That, I mean, people were just really surprised, and I did not hear, and not one city saying they were doing anything along these lines. A lot of talk about diversity, a lot of talk about equity, a lot of talk about that kind of thing, but nobody was talking about reparation except for us. And so we have had offers of support and counsel as late as Friday, or as late as Saturday, from the ACLU.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, that was the latest. They reached out to Robin. I mean, really national leaders at ACLU. I don't mean somebody from Peoria. I mean somebody really big. And
Nothing wrong with the people from Peoria.
Nothing's wrong with Peoria, but a lot of Republicans there. But this is really, we are really on the right track. And so I really hope that we support Robin and the subcommittee.
All right, seeing no more lights, let's take Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone on City Council, the Equity Empowerment Commission, the entire city of Evanston that has participated. I want to thank early support from Senator Laura Fine with a letter of support, Dino Robinson, who is our local historian, and the National African American Reparations Commission, which includes Judge Lionel Jean-Baptiste. I'm really grateful that we can build on the great work that he established in 2002 in support of HR 40, and he had some other very important initiatives as it relates to educating the community on our Black history. I just wrote a couple of things I'd like to share, but to add to Alderman Rainey's point, we just came from National League of Cities where there were 4,000 municipal elected officers, mayors, and council people that were in awe of our commitment and asking us for a toolkit on how they can implement a similar initiative in their communities, especially those that have the new recreational marijuana tax. So we are leading as we lead in so many other ways. And I just wanted to kind of bring that message back from NLC. They did ask me to speak at the real breakout, and I was able to speak on a panel and kind of lay out what our path towards a local reparation has been. Some comments. The acknowledged historic wrongs in our city are directly responsible for our local segregation, wealth divide, and overall lesser quality of life and livability for Black Evanston residents. On June 10th, we unanimously passed Resolution 58R19, acknowledging our unfortunate past and our commitment to end structural racism and achieve racial equity. The resolution was one of many that we've passed in a few years, and many we've passed in the spirit of equality, inclusion, Black history, and progress. Holding true to our ceremonial traditions and statements, I'm requesting that we take an action as radical as the redlining still impacting our families today in a lifetime ago passed our resolution, our first resolution in the name of Black equality. We cannot quantify the wealth lost in our city due to redlining, but our data shows that our efforts in our history have not been enough. In fact, our wealth divide has increased. Our Black home ownership rate is at a low point since the 60s, and our population has declined to a new low of 16%. A reparation policy is our best step in repairing the demonstrable damages to Black families, Black neighborhoods, Black institutions, and Black businesses. We are leaders in Evanston, and it is time we lead our city past ceremony and apology and into an overdue commitment to of reparative policy. Number one reason residents settle in Evanston is our diversity. Let's honor our diversity with actionable policy and funding that uplifts neighbors that have been excluded. The case for our local reparation is found in historic redlining in Evanston and is well documented at Shorefront Legacy, Evanston History Museum, the Evanston Library, the Clerk's Office, and it's living today in families that have 3 to 5 generations of lineage in our city. Let's take action. $10 million to fund primarily a redlining reparation for African American residents is a step towards repair. Of course, we outlined redlining, but there is no coincidence that the area includes Census Tract 8092, our lowest income neighborhood in the community, as well as our lowest income generally. $45,951 is more than the average income of Black households. It's also the income disparity between Black and white households in Evanston. The median white household income is $89,789. The median Black household income is $43,083. Not because of talent or ambition, but because of racial discrimination and oppression. Yet we have provided for our children secure housing, pay the same tax rates, pay for college, navigate loss, trauma, and emergencies, sustain businesses, support our aging parents, and dream. We must do this earning $45,951 less in the same community. It is difficult. The redline neighborhoods also include our lowest life expectancy, a disparity of 13 years of life. Census Tract 8092 versus Census Tract 8080. With this fund, we can implement programming to directly invest into Black Evanston. Our measurements of success can include increased Black household income, increase in revenue for Black-owned businesses, and improved infrastructure for historically Black and redline neighborhoods. We are a city for all people, and our goal is to close the disparities established by the intentional oppression of one racial group expanded by a continuation of a wealth transfer. How do we do it? Racially biased arrest for marijuana possession has adversely impacted the Black community, and the damages in some cases will linger for generations. Consequences from marijuana convictions limit and exclude residents from housing, employment, and student financial aid. The war on drugs and mass incarceration have devastated the Black community, and although policy is being corrected, the impact will remain. It is appropriate that sales tax revenue from marijuana, recreational marijuana, be invested in the community in which it unfairly policed and damaged. 71% of marijuana arrests in Black are from Black Evanstonians, although we are a declining 16% population only. I am asking that we unite in support of Resolution 126R19.
That's all right. City Clerk, I'm going to ask you to call the roll. This is a historic vote on SP2, Resolution 126-R-19, establishing a City of Evanston funding source devoted to local reparations.
If I may take a quick personal privilege of 2 seconds. Thank you, Alderman Ruth Simmons, for all
Clerk,
the work.
can we get to the vote? We're going to call the vote.
Jesus Christ.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right, Resolution 126-R-19, establishing a City of Evanston funding source to vote local reparations, passes on a 8-1 vote. Congratulations. All right. We're now going to move on to the consent agenda for the City Council. The consent agenda today, we are going to approach slightly differently. I'm going to ask council members if there are any items that they would like to remove from the consent agenda.
I would.
So Alderman Ravel.
Item A30 and P1.
All right, A30, let's just make sure. All right, item A30, okay,
And item-
and P1 is removed from the agenda. Alderman Rainey.
Whatever the number is, I'm on the Central Street liquor license.
That's
The
a,
grill,
that's
the-
a,
The Central Street grill,
the Central Street Grill. That's A20, okay, is off the agenda. Okay, let's look, wait 1 second, Alderman Fisk. Okay, 820, okay, Old Neighborhood Grill.
Yes.
Alderman Fisk, you said A3? A3.
And then A28, I just have, I think, 2 more very small corrections.
Okay, A28.
All right.
Okay. All right, Alderman Rainey, do you have anything else, or I forgot to turn your light off?
We had, no, that was the only thing on AMPW. I believe.
Okay. Alderman Suffredin.
Yeah, I'm looking to remove, where's the budget?
I think that's SP.
Alderman Sufferton, that was the only thing on AMPW, right?
I'm sorry.
That was the only thing on AMPW?
Yeah.
I think the budget is one of the special orders of business. Is that correct?
Yeah, are we doing those?
About this one, SB10.
SB10, please.
Are we moving the special orders of business as part of the consent agenda?
I must be looking at an old agenda because I don't have all those other items.
SB10.
Can I see it? Can I see an agenda here? I'm working off of something that. How do I end at SP2? All right. You need to get you an agenda.
That's SP10.
Okay.
But that's.
All right. I'm sorry. SP10. Alderman Suffredin. Okay. SP10 is off.
Can I have a point? Since I wasn't here, obviously. So are the special orders we're doing as consent agenda? I just want to be sure before I pull. Okay. So may I pull off SP6, please? The library.
SP10 is budget. Okay. Any other items?
Mr. Mayor, I have A29 should come off for a housekeeping issue.
All right. A29 is off for housekeeping issue. Alderman Fleming, did you have anything else, or I forgot?
Yeah,
to turn your
no,
light?
I do have SP4, which is a tax levy.
All right, SP4 is off. Any other items? I'm going to run through the items. Okay, Alderman Rainey.
Mr. Mayor, the reference on the setting the tax rate for the cannabis tax refers to the money raised by adult cannabis going into the general fund. I'm wondering, should there not be a reference to the reparation?
I don't think a separate fund's been established. I think you're going to be creating a.
But I'm just interested in some reference. If we all die tomorrow and nobody knows that it's supposed to go there, just think in the ordinance, it should say something about reparation.
I don't plan on
Also,
dying
it
tomorrow.
says that the taxes will be coming on September 1, and we know that's been changed to January 1.
July 1.
I mean, July 1.
Let's remove that one and we'll talk
All
about
right,
it.
SP3 is off. We can.
It's now July 1, and the ordinance says September 1.
All right. Any other items? I'm going to read the ones that are taken off, everybody, okay? Off the agenda is SP3, which is adult use cannabis. SP4, which is the City of Evanston tax levy. SP6, which is the Evanston Library Fund. We're removing that. SP10, which is the 2020 budget. A3, which is Hacienda Landscaping. A20, which is the Old Neighborhood Grill liquor license. A28, which is the ethics ordinance. A29, which is the municipal solid waste hauling license. A30, classification license fees to the Class R1. And then P1, which is the zoning relief for 1570 Oak Ave. Those are the items being pulled off. Are there any others that people would like off? Seeing none, would somebody like to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay. City Clerk, could you please take the roll on the consent agenda?
Just as a quick note, we should take a vote to suspend the rules. There is one item that requires this.
I
No,
think
it's
it was
been
taken
pulled
off.
off.
That was taken off, yeah.
I can
Okay.
point to
I thought that was Old Neighborhood.
A19. Does that not require suspension
see.
of the rules?
All right.
Yeah.
A19 is the Enterprise Rent-A-Car. That was being put forward for introduction and action.
So let's vote on suspension.
We'll do it
let's-
on that item then.
All right, so let's do it on this item. All in favor
I
of,
move we suspend the rules for A19.
is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so rules have been suspended.
And then if I may make one other note.
9-0, okay.
When we move the consent agenda, never mind. I do see that it is listed as a part of the consent agenda.
We took it off.
Special orders if
We
I.
took it off in committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. All right, so City Clerk, could you take the roll, please, on the consent agenda?
Yes. Alderman Fleming. Aye. Alderman Fisk. Aye. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
And Alderman Fleming. I'm sorry, yes. I just was going down the line, saw you.
You get to vote twice, Alderman. All right, so the consent agenda passes the Evanston City Council on a 9-0 vote. We're now going to move to the items that were removed. First one was SP3. Let's see. I might just move all the way around the dais here. So we'll start with you, Alderman Fisk, on SP3, if you could introduce that.
Sure. SP3 is ordinance 99019, adding section 20 to establish the adult use cannabis retailer's occupation tax. It's for action. I move approval.
Is there a second? Okay, this is open for conversation now.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Rainey had brought up that this ordinance doesn't specifically state that the revenue will go into the reparations fund, but we have passed resolution SP2 this evening remedying that. So without knowing whether or not the resolution was going to pass tonight, we didn't incorporate it into the ordinance that you see here tonight. So if I could just have Corporation Counsel weigh in on if there's something administrative we need to do to make that change, or if passing the ordinance remedies it. I'm sorry, the resolution.
Sure. So ordinance, if you look at the packet on page 118, so it's section 3.223, it says deposit of funds. The city council just needs to amend that to say the reparations fund. It right now states city's general fund.
Thank you.
All right.
I move.
We can't hear you.
How about now? 3.223, deposit of funds. All proceeds resulting from the imposition of the tax set forth in the section, including interest and penalties, shall be deposited in the city's reparation account, as opposed to city's general fund.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay.
That
amendment passes 8-1.
One other amendment. It says in here someplace that the funds will start being received on September 1, and that should be July 1. I can't find it now. But
We'll start receiving them on September 1, but they will start being collected by the retailer on July 1. So there's a delay in when we receive, but we will receive them for the time period.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? All right. So I seeing no more lights, ordinance 99-0-19 as amended to establish the adult use cannabis retail's occupation tax was moved and seconded. City Clerk, you take the roll, please.
Sure. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Ordinance 99-0-19 passes the Evanston City Council on an 8-1 vote. Alderman Braithwaite, could you take us to SB4?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to move ordinance 136-0-19. 2019 City of Evanston tax levy. Staff recommends city adoption of the tax ordinance 136-019, which levies the annual property tax for General Operations Human Services Fund, Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, Police and Fire Pension Funds, and Solid Waste Funds, totaling $34,851.18. This represents an increase of 10.8 over the 2018 levy of $31,458,362 as extended. This is for action.
Okay, this is open for discussion. Alderman Fleming.
Yeah, so sorry if you guys already had this discussion. So I pulled this off because while I understand that we need the money, I guess in trying to do my research on taxes, and as you know, I work at the county, I am not totally convinced, and I don't know that we will know until the bill comes out, that our bill will go down as we hope it will with the increase in commercial taxes. I think everyone was shocked when they did see their property taxed.
Their assessed value.
Thank you, assessed value, thank you. Anyway, so while I guess my concern here is that, you know, at the 10% increase, we're hoping it's going to kind of level out, but we're not sure. And so I'm just a little uncomfortable going forward with this, and then we realize that, you know, the assessor is not quite sure of his numbers and what's going to happen with our tax bills. Actually, the young lady whose name I don't know, who talked about us passing the reparations and helping in the way in which we as a city have, helped with the wealth gap or contributed to the wealth gap. You know, I'm a little bit conflicted in passing one thing to help families and then passing this that we don't know how it's going to impact families. So I do want to point out to people who are just in the viewing audience that a lot of this increase is going to go to pensions, which we are obligated to pay. But I just wish that I had a better crystal ball to know if this was really how it's going to impact people's property taxes when they get them. So I'm just uncomfortable moving forward with the 10% number.
Thank you, Alderman. All right, seeing no more lights, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on ordinance 136-0-19, the 2019 City of Evanston tax levy?
Alderman Fleming,
No.
Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Ruth Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton, Alderman Ravel, and Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right, ordinance 136-0-19, the 2019 City of Evanston tax levy passes the Evanston City Council on a 7-2 vote. Alderman Nguyen, could you take us to introduce or move SB6?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance 138-019, the 2019 Evanston Library Fund Tax Levy. The Library Board recommends the City Council adopt the tax levy ordinance 138-019 per Library Board action on October 27, 2019, which levies the annual property tax for the Evanston Public Library in the amount of $7,476,289 as extended, including a 3% loss factor. This represents an increase of 8.5% over the 2018 levy as extended. I move approval.
Second.
Okay, this is open for conversation. Alderman Fleming?
I might ask for this to be removed because, as I said last week, I'll be voting no, not because I don't enjoy the libraries, but I have great frustration, which I voiced last year with us opening the brand new Robert Crown Library and the cost of that, and the Libraries Board's decision not to close the library at CAMS at Chicago Avenue in Maine.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
I second what my partner here, Cicely Fleming, just said.
Okay.
Too many libraries.
All right, thank you. All right, seeing no more lights, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on SB6, ordinance 138-0-19, 2019 Evanston Library Fund Tax Levy?
Alderman Fleming,
No.
Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson, Alderman Ruth Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton, Alderman Ravel, Alderman Rainey.
No.
All right, ordinance 138-0-19, the 2019 Evanston Library Fund Tax Levy passes the Evanston City Council on a 6-3 vote. Let's see, Alderman Wilson, could you move SB 10?
Yes, ordinance 149-019, approval of the fiscal year 2020 budget. Staff is recommending City Council adoption of ordinance 149-019, approving the fiscal year 2020 budget of the City of Evanston in the amount of $320,709,227. The budget is funded through a variety of revenue sources, including property taxes. This is for action. I move approval.
Second.
Okay, this is open for discussion. Alderman Fleming?
Yep. Okay, so we have to pass a budget. I do understand that, and I know I just voted no to property taxes, although I don't have a checkbook to make up that gap. I spent a lot of time thinking about parking, which I know people probably of our budget items are most frustrated by. And last meeting, I asked how much the parking increase would be. So in spending some time with my calculator, and I tried to make sure this was right, not like my accusation of the library director's car allowance last time that I made an error on. I just looked at our consulting, our travel, training, and our clothing, which I do know some of those things, particularly travel, training, and clothing with the police, we have a contract for. But that is a little bit over $1 million. And I'm a little frustrated that our citizens continue to tell us that they feel like we're nickel and diming them. I think Alderman Fisk's comment last week regarding us turning down some buildings for a variety of reasons, but not thinking about how we're going to pass those costs over is totally accurate. So while I understand the budget, I understand we have to pass the budget. I wish that we did it in a different way that allowed council to be maybe a little bit more involved. But being as we sit now, I have a hard time passing this over, understanding that between, the increased parking, potentially increase in the property taxes, and any other smaller increases we made, the citizens are going to continue to feel like we haven't made enough cuts within the building to kind of justify making these increases to our citizen base. So that's what I wanted to say about the budget.
Thank you, Alderman. All right, seeing no more lights, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on ordinance 149-0-19, approval of the fiscal year 2020 budget?
Alderman Fleming,
No.
Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Ruth Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton, Alderman Ravel, and Alderman Rainey. and Alderman Rainey.
I'm sorry, was that an aye? Okay. All right. The Evanston City budget for 2020 passes the Evanston City Council on a 7-2 vote. If you guys don't mind, I'm just going to keep doing the round robin type of thing that we're doing here. So Alderman Ruth Simmons, could you move A3?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A3, contract award with Hacienda Landscaping Incorporated for the Harbor Park renovation. Staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to execute a contract for the Harbor Park renovation project with Hacienda Landscaping Incorporated in the amount of $899,300. Funding will be provided as follows: $229,300 in 2019 general obligation bonds, $100,000 in 2020 general obligation bonds, $100,000 in good neighbor funds, $150,000 in neighborhood improvement funds, and $320,000 in grant funds from the Open Space Land Acquisition and Development Program. Further information is included in the transmittal memorandum. This is for action.
Is there a second? All right. This is open for conversation. Alderman Fisk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I asked for this to come off the consent agenda because I just want to make sure that I understand how we're approaching our park scorecard. This is one of the lowest ranked parks on the scorecard, now that I'm losing my place here.
Harbor?
Yes, Harbor Park is one of the lowest ranked ones. Is Laura still here?
There she goes.
Laura, can you just explain to me how we're ranking these as we get money? We're paying attention to this?
My name is Laura Biggs. I'm the city engineer. So when we had this call for projects come out from the OSLAD grant program, this is a program that was suspended quite some time ago, and it's the first call for projects that happened in a while. We actually looked at lowest ranked parks, but also OSLAD grant really prefers parks in certain demographic areas related to average median income. And so this park turned out to be just a really good fit in terms of that. And so it isn't always just the lowest ranked park when we choose to do a project. Sometimes it's also how much maintenance problem the park is, which isn't always reflected in the lowest ranking. But in this case, they happen to overlap.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Laura, while you're standing up there, I just wanted to quickly acknowledge our staff for the really good work in doing this. I share the same comments at APW, so just to you and Stephanie, who took the time to meet with our residents. This is not because of the grant process, it was shortened, so we had to be really compact with the meetings, very thorough and detailed, and thank you very much for the attention that was given to our residents, as well as the effort to get this project in for next year.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, Laura. Seeing no more lights, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on A3, the contract award for Hacienda Landscaping Inc. for Harbor Park renovations?
Yes. Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Stufferton. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
All right, the Harbor Park contract, A3 passes on a 8-0 vote with Alderman Nguyen was absent for this vote. All right. Next, Alderman Stufferton, let's see, what are we? Can you introduce or move A20?
I move item A20, ordinance 169-019, Class D liquor license increase for Old Neighborhood Grill. The local liquor commissioner recommends city council adoption of ordinance 169-019, amending Class D liquor license from 59 to 60 for Old Neighborhood Grill Incorporated, doing business as Old Neighborhood Grill, 2902 Central Street, Evanston, Illinois 60201. And I request suspension of the rules for introduction and action.
All right, is there a second? Second. Okay, it's open for conversation. Alderman Rainey.
Sorry. When this came before AMPW, I totally opposed suspending the rules on this. And as a matter of fact, when the meeting was over, I still opposed suspending the rules, but I did support introducing it. I read the cover memo when I was doing my packet, and it indicated that the neighborhood grill had not had a liquor license since, I don't know, September or October. And I thought that was very strange. And we had no information about why they didn't have a liquor license. So I contacted the legal department and discovered why they did not have a liquor license. I was very concerned because we had no information in our packet as to the minutes of the liquor commissioners meeting. And the reason for that is because we have this ridiculously long period of time before a packet is produced that the staff has to provide information to all of the people who put the packet together. So it was too short a period of time after the meeting was held that the minutes couldn't get in. I did find out why, and I felt anybody who had those issues should not even be given a liquor license. And then I found out more, and I was certain of that. And then this evening, I had an opportunity to talk with the owner of the grill. And it was interesting. All of the issues that I was concerned about, in fact, did happen. However, there were certain circumstances beyond his control. Those issues, in addition to the fact that several schools, and this is where my soft motherly heart comes in, several grade schools or PTAs have scheduled holiday parties, and he's been without a liquor license. And, you know, I asked why the $1,700 that we read about couldn't be paid until March, and, you know, hasn't been making any money. And I mean, the story is really quite difficult, and it does involve the hiring of, you know, a case from Kurt's Cafe, as a matter of fact. I'm going to put that out there. And there, you know, there was an issue with a bartender selling liquor to a minor. So a lot of it was circumstances beyond his control, actually. And, you know, people got fired. And so I am going to support suspending the rules. And I think we got to get this guy back into business. And you are right, Tom. Let's get him back into business and move him on. But I'll tell you what, I think he has learned a lesson, and this can't happen anymore. If you have a liquor license in this city, you have a privilege, and you can't screw up and forget to pay for renewals and forget this and forget that. You know, if it's just you don't have the money, I'm sure you can plead your case, but all these other things, you just can't have a liquor license, I think.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
So back to the selling liquor to a minor, there was a discipline for that? Is that what you're saying?
Part of this is the fine, the $1,700.
Mm-hmm.
He pled guilty at administrative adjudication.
Yes, and the person that served it is no longer there.
Yeah. Oh no,
Yes.
he's in jail.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway,
Okay.
I felt the case really warranted.
Thank you for giving us that explanation on that.
An opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
All the facts are still the same,
Mm-hmm.
but there are causes, you know.
So, all right, so we're going to have to do a vote on the suspension of the rules for introduction. Alderman Safran, you want to move that? We'll see if we get a second.
We did introduce it.
We introduced the entire, I guess you're right. We introduced the entire thing with suspension of the rules. That's correct. Okay, so this is an ordinance. So City Clerk, could you please take the roll on A20, ordinance 169-0-19, Class D liquor license, increase for the Old Neighborhood Grill.
I apologize. We didn't vote to suspend the rules.
No, we're going to do that.
You have to take the vote to suspend the rules separately of the actual motion.
The vote is to introduce.
It's introduction and action.
Well, she
and it
moved
was
the introduction, though.
I'm sorry. Are we?
Alderman Suffren moved to suspend the rules, and
He did.
so we should vote on that, so.
Okay.
Okay.
all right. So all in favor. Okay. Is there a second to suspending the rules?
Second.
All right. All in favor of suspending the rules and allowing this to be for introduction and action?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So the rules have been suspended. All right. Alderman Suffren, can you just move this real quickly? You don't have to read everything again. We'll get a second and do the whole vote.
Sure. Move item A20, which is ordinance 169-019, or Class D liquor license increase for Old Neighborhood Grill.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. City Clerk, you take the roll, please, on A20.
All right. Alderman Fleming.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffren. Alderman Ravel. And Alderman Rainey.
All right. Ordinance 169-0-19, Class D liquor license has passed 9-0 on the Evanston City Council for the Old Neighborhood Grill. All right. Let's see. Alderman Ravel, could you move A28?
Sure. I move ordinance 20-0-19, amending Title I, Chapter 10, City of Evanston Code of Ethics and Board of Ethics. And this is for action.
Second.
All right. Open for conversation. Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. Hopefully these are the last two small changes, but for those of you following along, on page 1067 in section 1-10-14, there's a provision setting the timeline within which a complaint is to be filed. It currently reads within 30 days after the alleged violation. I think we should change that to say within 30 days after the alleged violation is known or should have been known. Because of course, if it, isn't published yet, or if it's not known yet, it should be that. So I move that we revise that subsection to add the language that says is known or should be, or should have been known at the end of this last sentence.
Okay. Does anyone want to speak on that, or are we going to do a vote on that amendment?
Is that the amendment?
There's one more after.
All right, but let's do a vote on that amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Alderman Wilson.
Okay, and on page 1068, subsection B, this refers to acknowledgement or receipt of the complaint. It says that it's to be sent by email to the complainant. Perhaps not everybody has email, so I'd like to add the word via email or regular mail. So I move that we amend it to add the words or regular mail after the word email. Or first class mail. Okay.
All right, anyone want to talk on that change?
I want to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you want to speak on that?
I just wanted to ask, and I don't have that up here. When a complaint has been filed, what is the, and I don't have it open, I'm sorry, Alderman Wilson. What is the time frame from when a complaint has been filed to when a jurisdictional decision has to be made? Is that in there?
Yeah, and subsection C, if you read down, let's see. Well, I think it is. So there's 7 days to acknowledge receipt. Special counsel and advisory panel give their findings at the closed session of the next regularly scheduled meeting. And then they should determine whether the complaint should be dismissed. So it's the next regularly scheduled meeting. And if you recall, elsewhere in the code, there's also the provision that does allow for continuances, as we discussed more extensively previously. So that could be changed by virtue of the fact that somebody might request.
And is it confidential when between the time a complaint is filed and the jurisdictional meeting?
Right, that's initially reviewed in closed session.
A complaint was recently filed against me, a 20-page complaint, and prior to the jurisdictional meeting, which was the next regular scheduled meeting, which it did not take place at, by the way. It was in the newspaper. Evanston Now reported on the complaint.
So I don't think that there's any way that we can prevent a complainant who prepares a complaint from sending it to whoever they want to send
Peddling
it
it to the media, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, but anyway, my complaint was not, there was no jurisdictional decision made at the next meeting, because the meeting was Tuesday, and my complaint was filed prior to that.
Okay.
All right. But in terms of the amendment, though, changing it to via email or regular mail, Ann, do you want?
Well, let's say via email or first-class mail if so elected by the complainant.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
All right, that amendment's.
With those two amendments, I move that we approve ordinance 20-019 regarding the ethics and Board of Ethics as amended.
All right. Any discussion? Alderman Fleming?
Yeah, just a quick comment. So I thank you for the changes. Thank you to the subcommittee that worked on this, because my brain doesn't have the capacity. And I imagine that sometimes this drives us crazy, but I want to thank the citizens who followed this, who kept pushing to make sure that this was done correctly. I don't know whether it was or not. I know that the final version, I think, makes a lot more sense to me as a layperson and not an attorney. So thank you all for drudging through that. And especially thank you for adding the gender neutral pronouns. I think people appreciate that.
Thank you. And I think, I don't recall if I gave all the thank yous before, but we do owe thanks to a lot of members of the community who weighed in. Even some of our local press was kind enough to catch a lot of the early typos and punctuation and other points, so that's appreciated, as well as the current ethics board who did give some consistent feedback over a period of time. So that's all appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more lights, City Clerk, you take the roll on A28, Ordinance 20-0-19, amending Title I, Chapter 10, City of Evanston Code of Ethics and Board of Ethics.
Alderman Fleming, Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Ruth Simmons, Alderman Suffredin, Alderman Ravel, and Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right, we have a new Code of Ethics and Board of Ethics. Thank you, everybody. That passed on a 9-0 vote. Alderman Rainey, could you move A29?
A29, as soon as I find it here. A29. This is ordinance, okay, I have it right here. Ordinance A29 is 148-019, amending the city code municipal solid waste hauling license. So the proposed ordinance updates the city code for municipal solid waste and for the municipal solid waste hauling license requirements in the following ways. Do you want me to read all this, or should I just leave it like that?
I don't think so. No.
It's
So is there a second? Okay. All right. This is open for conversation. Interim city manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was inadvertently left off the APW agenda today, and so thus did not get discussed in committee. So I would like to get a sense of if we would like to have it renoticed for introduction at APW next time, or just put on for action next meeting and discuss it now at the council.
I have a question.
Alderman Rainey.
I read somewhere where the amount of money we're going to generate from this is very small. Is that right?
It's
No?
not small. Dave Stonebeck is here. He can speak to the issue.
This has to do with our franchise, the people who have opted out of our franchise, right? Or am I mistaken?
I'll let Dave speak to it.
Good evening, Dave Stonebeck, Public Works Director. Yes, so the ordinance currently exempted the hospitals and the universities, and then there are two organizations that have gotten exemption from the franchise as well. So this would make everybody that's not currently getting their solid waste picked up by group have to pay this hauler's fee.
So
which people who are serviced by Groot is paying.
So it says here an additional 42,000.
That is what our estimate is, yes.
All right, so I got a call saying that a certain very large institution was going to be seriously harmed by this. If the total amount, and also, isn't the theater on Maple, aren't they exempt from this?
I would have to
remember?
double check. I don't know that one.
thought-
That's not one of the ones I'm familiar with, but it could be.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I remembered they might have opted back in. But, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's an opportunity to get money from those who aren't in the franchise, because they've been given a very good opportunity not to have to participate in our system.
Correct.
So, I mean, anyway, if we didn't have it at AMPW, that's for sure. So I guess we
Yeah,
have
it's just
to-
introduction, so it'll be
Yeah.
coming back. So I'll move that we introduce it.
Mayor Pro Tem?
You can.
Can I do it here? Okay, all right, we are ready to vote on ordinance 148-0-19, amending City Code Title 8, Chapter 4, Municipal Solid Waste, and Chapter 4.5, Municipal Solid Waste Hauling License for introduction.
All right. I will
City
take a roll.
Clerk, would you take the roll?
I will take the roll. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons. Alderman Sufferton. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right, where are we in our
This is on a
readings?
9 to, the next item on the agenda was 8:30.
Right, and who is next to be?
I think Alderman Fleming.
Alderman Fleming, you want to introduce?
830 ordinance 51-0-19, amending City Code 3-4-6, classification and license fee to add Class R1 to Liquor Code. The Liquor Commissioner recommends council adopt this ordinance, which requests a proposed ordinance change to allow for alcoholic beverage sales at Welsh Ryan Arena for action.
Second.
Oops, here he comes.
Alderman Ravel?
Thank you.
How did I know?
Yes, I wanted to take this off the consent agenda for some serious discussion. As we heard earlier from some public comment tonight, the ordinance as it's currently drafted for the Class R1 liquor license lacks really very important restrictive details that we already include in our liquor code for other similar classes. And in particular, I looked at the language in our code that governs the sale of alcohol in cinemas, at commercial indoor recreation facilities, in theaters, and for live musical performances. And those parts of our code address important aspects of alcohol sales that I believe should be addressed in this section for the R1 liquor license as well. So among the restrictive details that are missing are the following. One is days of operation. As drafted, there's no language that limits the sale of alcohol to days when there are events taking place. So it would seem to me we would want to refer to events and games and such. There's no mention of hours of operation. No provision for the hours of permitted alcohol sales, for example, from 1 hour before a game or concert begins until half time or 1 hour before the scheduled end of the event. If you look at our Class U liquor license for category for theater performances and the Class V licenses for live musical performances, the liquor code very definitely links the hours of permitted alcohol sales directly to the performances themselves. So it's certainly been our practice in the past. Number 3, containers. Of some of the license classes, we have specifications that alcohol shall be dispensed in plastic containers and shall not be removed from the premises, and that no alcohol shall be brought onto the premises or consumed on the premises other than that sold by the licensee. And I suggest that this is an important requirement. Types of alcohol. Some of our license classes permit the sale of beer and wine only. This restriction, I believe, should apply to the main arena area. I don't know if the intent is for beer only, beer and wine only. And if the beverage service is different for the Wilson Club, this should be addressed in the code as well. And the fifth one issue that we have reference to in a number of places in our code are provisions to prevent the consumption of alcohol by minors. Several of our license classes spell out the requirements for Bassett certified employees and emphasize that alcohol sales are limited to those at least 21 years of age. And then one other issue that's not part of our code in other licenses, but I do think should be part of this one, is something about the limit to purchase no more than 2 alcoholic drinks per person per transaction. That's very common in the way alcohol sales are handled at other university arenas. So, having said all that, I would like to make a substitute motion to refer this ordinance, adding the Class R1 liquor to the liquor code back to the Liquor Commission to address these issues and any other issues that may be suggested. A substitute motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got to vote on that motion then, right?
Well, we can talk about it.
We can discuss it. Okay. So, all right, the motion's on the table to return this to the Liquor Commission. It was moved by Alderman Ravel, seconded by Alderman Fleming. It's open for discussion.
Lights on.
Alderman Wilson.
So I appreciate all of the points. I don't think that they're particularly complex. So I think what makes more sense is just to leave it at APW for further discussion, just bring forth the suggested changes and go from there. It's not like it's, anything that unusual in comparison to the other sections you referenced.
Alderman Braithwaite.
I was ready to support it, and I won't put you on the spot, but I'm hoping that if these questions do get addressed, that you would feel comfortable supporting it. You don't have to respond to that. The other thing that I would share is, to my understanding, Northwestern has catered these events, and there has been, so they don't charge. And I think that that's important to note for anyone paying attention. And to my knowledge, for the 1 or 2 events that I've attended, I cannot think of any incident that has happened at one of these events. So I see nothing but a benefit other than we're going to get a little extra revenue for a common practice that the university has been doing for years. So it's my statement.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey, then Alderman Fisk.
Well, I think Ms. Mason-Cup probably can clarify this further, but when we actually get an applicant for one of these licenses, and in between then and now, we can also massage this and make it more clear. But it's pretty clear that this liquor license will only be in effect when there's an event going on. And we don't even know, but we don't even know whether Northwestern wants to have liquor when there's a game on. We don't know that. We know that this is really targeted to the special events. We know that they cannot have a special event without liquor. So unless we get this on the book, they can't even start booking events. They're not going to have a special event this week. So I think we do have to get some things, but I would never support 2 drinks per person. If you've got 3,000 people, how are they going to keep track of 2 drinks per event? I have no problem with 1 hour before and 1 hour after, or stopping drinks at, an hour or half an hour, before the concert ends or something like that. I mean, it's easier for the vendor also to start cleaning up. But I mean, we're not recreating the wheel. These people, the levy organization, they do this all over the country, and we're not new. This is not new, and we can add some some things in this, but I don't think it's up to the Liquor Commission to make these rules. So I think it needs to stay in AMPW, and I think at our next meeting, we should amend it. But, I mean, some of that, also, just give some thought. We don't need to worry about the Welsh Ryan Arena. We've got restaurants on Central Street that are causing problems, so think about it.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I would like some clarification from you, Mr. Mayor, about how the Liquor Board is going to look at each one of these events. I go to tennis events a lot, and I don't drink a lot, but every tennis event has a signature drink. I mean, it's fun. Whether you go to Wimbledon or go somewhere else, they have a signature drink, and everyone seems to enjoy that and behave themselves. If you go to the opera, you can get a drink at intermission. If you go tons of places, it's offered to you. I mean, a glass of wine or a drink is certainly offered to you. I am a little bit concerned about when we have people up at the microphone saying there are 7,000 people who are going to be drinking and they're all going to be drunk and they're going to go out and destroy the neighborhood. That's not going to happen. But we do want to be very careful and say, you know, we do want to put protections in place for the neighborhood, and we do want to look out for the worst case scenario. But I don't want to have to come to ANPW and talk about this, but I would like ANPW, if that's where this is going to go, to think about that a little bit. Mr. Mayor, if you can answer the question for me. At each event, are they going to come to the Liquor Control Board and define what that event is, and then you'll put in considerations there? Okay.
Yeah, no.
So we're going to have to, at this point, we're going to have to assume that the events can range from a rock concert to Michelle Obama speaking. I mean, and anywhere in between. So I guess I would just throw that out there, that, again, comparing this to a football game is totally different, and that was part of my, I guess, frustration when we were talking about the special events at Welch Ryan. But I'm a little concerned that that's what we're doing here, that these special events can range from Disney on Ice, where you will probably be selling more hot chocolate than you're selling alcohol, to anything else. So I guess I'm just saying to ANPW, would you just think about what these events really are? And maybe if somebody from the Levy Corporation wants to come and talk to you about what's done at other locations and what problems they have in the Bassett training and how they control this, maybe that's helpful. But I want to sort of tamp this down a little bit. I really don't think that there's going to be a problem. And I live almost right on campus. I put up with this all the time, and the folks around Welch Ryan deal with it during games and obviously at specific times. I deal with it 24/7, and I love the Northwestern students, and they can pee in my yard, and every time they do, they're always very pleasant about it. But it just is. It's not something that we need to get totally worked up over. We just need to be kind of practical about this and figure out what the best way is forward, both for the ordinance that we pass and for the events themselves and for everybody who we hope is going to be attending these events, as well as for the neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Okay. So thank you, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Wilson, then Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you. So along those lines, Alderman Fisk, it seems to me that the kinds of events where alcohol is going to be consumed, that's the kind of event where somebody's going to be in their car or tailgating or hanging out before they go into the arena. So in my mind, and I'm relying heavily on intuition, and I plan to do a little bit more research and look at it more closely, but my initial thought is that I would rather have somebody go into the arena with a licensed vendor checking identification and, supervising that, as opposed to people in their car chugging as much as they can before they go into the venue, because that's kind of how the business model works now. So I'm not a fool. So I think this is kind of a way to address some of the binge drinking that takes place with the events that some people have expressed concern over, and to make that hopefully less of a problem outside the arena.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor. Just as a point of order, there is a motion on the floor to refer to AP&W, and debate should be limited to that. If it is going to be referred, then discussion.
I don't think there was a motion yet to
I think you made a motion and it was seconded.
Yeah, I thought there was a motion.
My motion is on the floor to
send it back to AP and.
to
I'm
send
sorry,
it
to
back
the Liquor Commission. I
Commission.
apologize,
So-
to the Liquor Commission.
But I'm happy to have that amended to go back to ANPW if somebody wants to.
I'll move that we.
Well, we'd have to withdraw.
Yeah, let's. I guess it makes sense. It's late. Let's talk about it at APW, which I'm not on. So I move that we send it back to APW.
We just withdraw.
We gotta.
Or amend her motion.
I move
Shall I, or I'll withdraw my motion and you amend my motion. I don't know.
Friendly.
All right. Why don't you withdraw, Alderman Ravel?
Okay.
Withdrawn. Okay, so then I move that we return it to APW for further discussion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. A30, ordinance 51-0-19 has been sent to the APW.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, was it sent back to ANPW for introduction, just start all over again, or for action?
No, I intended just to return it. It's still for action in my mind, so.
Okay. All right. Who did I leave off with? Alderman Fleming, could you, or maybe did you do one already?
Yeah, but I can do the next one. Where are we at?
Okay, why don't you do P1?
Ordinance P1, Ordinance 158-0-19, application for major zoning relief to locate required parking more than 1,000 feet from multi-family residence at 1570 Oak in the R6 General Residential District for introduction.
All right, open for the conversation. Alderman Ravel?
We had a bit of discussion about this in planning and development, and after we moved to introduce it, I don't know if this is quite the way to do it. I'm going to move to hold it, unless we wait till next week and I hold it. The idea was to give the applicant time to, in the memo, it talked about how he'd committed to working with a mobility impaired resident to find alternative, closer parking, and also to making the current rate available to current residents, at least for a period of time. And I guess I was interested in having an update from the applicant before we actually took action on this. And so the idea was it might need more than between now and the December 9th meeting.
Was there a motion?
Well,
Yeah, he agreed to that. So, and it's just for introduction. It's not for action tonight.
Right, but I thought I was going to hold it so he'd have more time than to come back in December 9th.
I think he said he didn't want more time.
Oh,
so.
he did want more time.
He said he'd come back next time and answer it. So.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, so this was moved for introduction and seconded. Alderman Fisk?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was clear with what Alderman Wilson said, that my understanding was that it was going to come back next time. Hopefully he'd have an answer. If he didn't, we would hold it at that time until he did.
Right.
Okay. Alderman Wilson, anything else?
No.
Okay. All right. So this is ordinance 158-0-19. And this was for introduction. It was moved and seconded. City Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Alderman Fleming, Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
All right. P1 ordinance 158-0-19 passes for introduction on a 9-0 vote. We are now going to go to call of the wards. Alderman Fleming.
Yes. Sorry I was late. I had a ward meeting in which I want to thank the 30-ish people who came to speak, thank the police and the youth and young adult team who came out to provide information and comfort the residents regarding the recent violence. I would like to, I guess, make a referral for the legal department to come back to AP&W, we did have some citizens who were concerned about being video recorded by a private citizen at the meeting, and it unfortunately got a little disruptive with people's concerns and requests not to be recorded. So I would like us to just have a update from legal in terms of
Recording at ward meetings?
recording at ward meetings by a non-city staff.
You bet.
And just people had lots of questions about what their rights were if they chose not to be recorded, but that request was not met positively. But anyhow, so the police did a great job, and citizens, I think, felt heard, so that was good. My second announcement is that we will not have another ward meeting, but we will have our annual 9th Ward holiday party. So we invite you, or I invite you to join us over at St. Nick's on Friday the 13th at 6 p.m., where we will be sharing desserts. There is no cost, obviously, to get in, but I do ask you to bring a coat or a warm weather item we can share with one of the schools that border the 9th Ward, so Chute, Dawes, and Oakton School. So hope that you will join us for that. And then I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the most exciting news is upcoming First Ward meeting on Tuesday, December 3rd from 7 to 9 at the library. We're going to have a lot of fun. Please come out and join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will have a second ward meeting the second Thursday in December.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, my next office hours are Thursday, December 5th, from 7:30 to 10 a.m. at Brothers K at the corner of Hinman and Main. Please come and join me. Thank you. And happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Wilson.
I would like to make reference to the Planning and Development Committee to look at whether we can or how we can address these issues that came up with regard to the solar panels. I know that a number of communities and other organizations are working on some uniform code provisions that might make it a lot easier for our boards and commissions to review those. So make that reference. And happy Thanksgiving to all.
Thank you, Alderman Rousseff.
Thank you. I'd like to make a referral to, I'm not sure which committee, maybe the City Council, that we look at the proposal as shared by Reclaim Evanston. They worked very hard over the summer, meeting with residents in all of our wards and getting feedback on affordable housing plan. They and I support using 50% of the graduated real estate transfer tax to go to fund our affordable housing fund. And I'd like to make a referral for consideration.
All right, thank you.
One more thing. Actually, we have canceled our December ward meeting. We will have a Christmas party. Details are coming, but we will not have our December ward meeting as usual.
Thank you, Alderman Sufferman. Alderman Ravel.
I have an item that I'd like to request to place on the agenda for our December 9th council meeting. This is a resolution calling for the U.S. government to support the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and I guess that would be a special order of business on December 9th.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would encourage members of the council to search Levy restaurants. A couple of items that I noted tonight was the following. 19,717 fans were served by Levy on average per game at the United Center. They served 948,000 fluid ounces of beer at the opening of the T-Mobile Arena, the grand opening. So I'm pretty sure they have some idea about how to serve 3,000 to 7,000 fans at Welsh Ryan Arena. I do not support in any way the use of the increased real estate transfer tax for the Affordable Housing Fund. The Affordable Housing Fund right now has $2 million in it, and I think to skim off the real estate transfer tax from the general fund that goes to support all sorts of things that we talk about that people in need is just a terrible mistake. It supports police services. It supports fire service. It supports housing rehab. It supports code enforcement. It supports all sorts of things that all of us need. Every penny we take out of the general fund, we have to tax people. Some of you supported the sales tax increase. We wouldn't have to support a sales tax increase if we didn't keep dipping in and skimming off the general fund money. Leave the real estate transfer tax increase alone. It hasn't been very productive so far. And once it gets productive, leave it alone so that we can use it. That's what I ask. Also, the city of Evanston is going to be awarded a special award next year at the National League of Cities, and we saw this year what happens when you get a 50-year award. We will be honored for being a 50-year consecutive member next year, and they have a huge video about any community that gets the 50-year award. So I'm going to make a reference to our videographers to begin working on that video, which of course will include reparations. Thank you.
Mayor, may I make one more referral? I'm sorry, I forgot about.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, you all can correct me if I'm wrong, but on parking and transportation, we heard from citizens who were concerned about the 4 inches, our new ordinance that says you don't have to remove ice or snow for 4 inches, and I don't think we decided to make that conversation in parking and transportation, so I'd like for it to come to APNW, and it'd be great if we can get it on for next week and just have a discussion. Many residents are concerned that folks aren't shoveling and 4 inches is too much to walk through.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Alderman Wilson, can you lead us into executive session?
Yes, pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding litigation, litigation minutes and personnel. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and I strike that. No minutes tonight, correct? Okay, I apologize. Litigation and personnel. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. The exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C1, and C11.
Is there a second? All right, City Clerk, can you take the roll, please?
Alderman Fleming, Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Ruth Simmons, Alderman Sufferton, Alderman Ravel, and Alderman Rainey. And Alderman Rainey. Yes.
All right. We unanimously, on a 9-0 vote, are going to recess into executive session. Thank you, everybody, for coming out, and have a nice evening.